Cool. All right. We are back in the studio. Gut Gang podcast. Special guest, Ryan. I call him Ryan Hawkeye. So really, really excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Brother.
Thanks for coming.
I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah. And I guess why don't we first start with the segue of how you and I connected, because we don't know each other.
No, not at all.
So this conversation is going to be pretty cool.
Super genuine.
I'm going to get to know you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you remember a few podcasts before, we had guest Ron, who's also known as Toronto's Ice King, right? He's my buddy that jumps in the cold water together. And he recently hung out with you guys. You guys were shooting some content and just had a really cool workout. Obviously, tell me more about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
And he just said, you've got to have this guy on your podcast.
Oh, that's cool.
And I said, okay, well, tell me about him. And then so he told me just a little bit. But a friend of Ron's is clearly a good person.
Yeah.
Right? Because Ron is just...
salt of the earth.
He really is.
Yeah.
So here you are.
Thanks for having me.
Because I'm a man of my word. And he told me what to do. So I'm going to honor that.
I think today's going to be great. I think we're going to have a great conversation.
Yeah. So I agree. Very, very exciting. So why don't you share with us? I like to break the podcast into like where you were, where you're at, and where you're going.
Yeah.
And then there's a ton of lessons and
of course
things like that. And I always allude to there's some prerequisites to be a guest on my podcast.
Yeah.
And one is you've got to either have graduated from my program, because that's easy. Like I want to showcase some wicked success stories, but I can't do clients all the time.
Yeah.
Or you have to agree to do a cold plunge, a sauna, and then the podcast.
Yeah.
And then the other prerequisite is you've got to be a good human being.
Yeah.
So here you are.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I will never pass up a song in a cold plunge.
Really?
And I work every day on trying to be a better human.
Yeah.
I think it's like it gives at any point in your life, you can find purpose in trying to become better, no matter how bad things get. Like if you're trying to be as healthy as you can, you're trying to be great in relationships, and you're trying to move something forward to serve the world in a way of like you're showing up. Because that's what we need, leaders more than anything right now.
Yeah.
Like we need it in our financial institutions. We need it in our medical institutions. We need it in the schooling institutions. Like we're desperate for leadership, especially masculine leadership. So I think there's a lot of purpose in just trying to be a good human.
You know what? I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I've been dying to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because it's becoming almost taboo, is masculinity and leadership.
Yeah.
And let's be real with ourselves. Our current leadership in education and health and politics, horrible at best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like let's be truthful here.
Yeah.
And this is perfect. I was hoping this was going to happen. Because you, like, if you look at you, and so for the listenership that's just listening right now, Ryan, how tall are you?
I used to be 6 feet till I hit a 400-pound squat. I'm 5'11". That's my claim to fame.
Okay. Well, the bottom line
I need a chiropractor.
The bottom line is, for those that are listening, this guy is a beast of a human being. He's an alpha male. He's just got this masculine energy that's just oozing from you. I saw you when you were parking. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is the dude.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about masculinity, because being a man, it's tough.
It is.
And I think that with society and just with changing of identities and curiosities and things like that, I think that to claim ownership to being an alpha male, it's a lot of responsibility.
A lot of
responsibility. And it's tough.
It's honorable, but it's a lot of responsibility.
And then it's hard for men to be masculine.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just said, like it's honorable.
Society's not welcoming of it.
Yeah. And with a lot of great responsibility, or with great power comes responsibility, and it's tough for guys.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Of course.
Because
nothing I'd love to talk about more than that.
Yeah. Leadership, masculinity.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then, and this is one of the other kind of like prerequisites that I want for the podcast is I want it to be educational.
Of course.
I want the listenership and the viewership to be able to take golden nuggets at any point and find commonalities, because, you know, sometimes there's podcasts with these crazy rock stars or huge gazillionaires.
So far away.
Yeah. It's not really attainable, or you just can't really relate.
Yeah.
But actually a long time ago, I did a series called Living Legends in Leadership, and it's still happening. Like I think right now, this is part of Living Legends in Leadership.
Yeah.
And we've got amazing leaders and living legends in our backyard,
all over the place.
right?
Yeah.
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 So why don't you share with me, because I want to learn more,
Of course.
who you are, where you came from, and let's get into that.
And then we'll circle back to
Yeah.
leadership stuff. Yeah. So I'll be 40 October 7th. Right.
Cool.
So I'm kind of in that point in my life right now where I've gone through all the storm. I don't want to go back. And I've really dug into who I am. I'm really finding out genuinely in my heart what my values, my integrities, my morals are, what I stand for.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to say them as loud. I don't care. I'm not here to hurt anybody. And anything I say today, just know I have good intentions.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm going to say the truth.
Okay.
Right. And anything I say, that's why I told you when we started talking, I'll talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be super transparent. I'll tell you stuff you don't even want to know. That's just who I am.
I appreciate that.
But it all comes from good intentions. I have no evil intentions in anything. So I grew up in a small town in the East Coast of less than 100 people.
Okay.
And my dad was my principal. The town's called Coal Creek. It's a coal mining town. And we traveled about 45 minutes to go to school. My dad was my principal in a small
40
town.
minutes every day
to
school.
Go to school, and a small town called Chipman that was less than 2,000
What
people.
province? Where?
New Brunswick.
Okay.
Yeah, New
Cool.
Brunswick. And so
How close is that to Dieppe? Because my mom's family.
2.5 hours.
Okay, cool.
2.5 hours away. So we're in New Brunswick. Anybody that knows New Brunswick well, it's about an hour from Fredericton and about an hour from Moncton. So it's kind of central in the province.
Okay.
And it's a lumber mining and a coal mining town, a lumberjack town and a coal mining town. Irving runs it. Anybody that knows anything about the East Coast, Irving owns the East Coast.
Okay.
And so I grew up a very simple life, and I had the best parents ever. Super loved, like just a normal childhood, easy childhood, great family.
Yeah.
But was never exposed even to technology. I never had a cell phone till I was 24. I never even touched a computer till I was 18.
Wow.
Right. So just like I grew up hunting, fishing, just like that's bonfire, snowshoeing, running around on ATVs and canoeing, and just like that's probably why I haven't been sick for 10 years. I kind of attribute it to that kind of like growing up in that lifestyle, eating on the farm, working on the farm. Like I worked on wild boar farms. I did a lot of baling of hay and worked on cattle farms and all that stuff when I was growing up. So I think there's a big part of like being exposed to that type of bacteria and into that lifestyle and just like down home cooking and nutrition and just hard work that probably gave me my immune system. Because I'm not even joking. It's been like 10 years since I even had a sniffle. Amazing. Like, I don't know if it's just genetically, like, I don't know if it's the genetics or what it is, but anyways, that's part of it. So very simple childhood. And then when I was 19 years old, I left the small town and went to Fredericton. That was my first like introduction to a real gym. So I started working out, just to go back, this is important. I was 12 years old when I started working out in the basement with my brother, and it's been my life ever since.
How old is your brother?
My brother's 5 years older than me, so he's 44. He's just
so
44.
You were 12, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
17 years old, he's working out.
He's working out, yeah. So we had the little bench at home. I should back up even more. I got my first set of dumbbells at 10. I was obsessed with Hulk Hogan. I still have them.
Oh,
cool.
Little
2.5 pound dumbbells. My mom bought them for me, and it was like a skip and rope, a headband. I still have the dumbbells.
Oh, like a Hulk Hogan kit?
Hulk Hogan kit. There was a pitcher, there was a skip and rope, a headband, and then the two blue dumbbells.
What an amazing way to set the a kid up for, that type of potential success.
I got to give my mom credit too, because I never really thought about this till just a few years ago, but my mom always did Tae Bo and like I remember having Campbell soup cans for weights. And she'd be doing like side laterals and curls and like doing workouts. And I just never thought of anything.
It stuck though.
So but my mom wasn't like a health. She still smokes to this day. They drink alcohol, but she always did her exercises. And I guess maybe that like influenced me and my brother. Yeah. So she deserves credit for that as well, I think. And so, so I had a simple childhood. When I was 19, I moved to Fredericton and started doing carpentry work and construction work. And I actually started my own construction company at 20 years old. And I kind of fell into it. So I was my friend worked at Home Depot. They were looking for people to start installing doors and siding. And I was like, oh, I know how to do that. Okay. So I started a little company. I just started doing, and all of a sudden I was doing flooring, and I ended up.
So hold on, were you working at Home Depot?
So I was working like a job doing construction. Yeah. And then my friend was a manager at Home Depot. I made friends with him, and he's like, we need someone to install doors, like just like doors and some siding and stuff. And I was like, oh, I can do that. So I started a little numbered company and just started doing my own little thing. And that was I've always been an entrepreneur, really. Even when I was young, I would always do something to try to make sales or do whatever, or do little side gigs and stuff like that. And then at 20, I guess I was almost 21 when I started that construction company, and I made friends with the guy that was in charge of the base Gagetown, the military base, and he was in charge of all the mess halls and all their construction. Okay. So he's like, we need to build decks across all our mess halls. And these were like 2,000 to 3,000 square foot decks, like party decks, right? So it was like $1 million in contracts, and he just handed it to me.
No way.
Yeah, and I'm like 21, right? So like this was my first, and I'm like, I didn't even know how to price everything properly,
Right.
and like I didn't have enough workers.
Well,
to
you
do
had
it. I didn't have money
supplier,
for pay. Yeah,
with home hardware or whatever.
Home Depot. Yeah, I was with Home Depot, right? So I had the supplier, and then I got this contract, and I started hiring people. I didn't know anything about payroll, and I was just winging it. But one thing that is like my superpower is like I'll try anything. And I've learned that about myself over time. Like I'm willing to try anything, and I don't care if I fail. I don't care if I look stupid, because I've always had good intentions. Like I'm just trying to win, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody. And that was instilled in me in my childhood, right? It's like, don't hurt anybody, but don't be scared to like work your ass off. But I quickly realized after a couple of years, that's right around when I'm starting my bodybuilding journey, right? And I quickly realized it's like, okay, getting up at 4 a.m. and doing fasted cardio, and then doing 10 or 12 hours of construction on a low calorie diet, and then trying to go back and then lift weights at night and then get 6 hours of sleep was like catching up with me.
Sure.
And I was like, I have to, if I really want to pursue like this life of like bodybuilding, I need to do something differently.
At what age did you know that like you wanted to do bodybuilding?
At 22.
Okay.
At 22. So I always worked out. So I'm kind of the opposite of most people, like start training to do bodybuilding. I just love training. And I built a half decent physique. Looking back now, it's kind of funny, but at that time I thought it was great. But
sure.
I thought it was like, I posted a photo of my stories the other day, like my first bodybuilding show, my legs compared to
yeah.
That's what I thought was like something, right? So I was like, it's kind of cute to look back at it. But yeah, I was proud of it at that point in time.
Sure.
And so the gym that I worked out at was a gym in Fredericton called Naturally Fit. And that's Naturally Fit's a whole story of its own. It's a crazy story, which we'll probably mention it quickly.
Talk about it. Let's hear it.
Yeah, like if you research Operation Jelly Bean,
okay,
it was the biggest steroid bust that ever happened. So he was the gym that I grew up training in, like from when I first moved to Fredericton. This is where like all the pro wrestlers came when they came to Canada. All the pro bodybuilders would come there, and so it's a whole story on its own. But if you research Operation Jelly Bean, you'll see the story on. So
there's a big drug bust at that gym.
Yeah. It's insane, the connections and how that was all working out. But I was exposed to that. So like the gym I not grew up in, but from when I was like 19 until my mid 20s, that's where I started my personal training career. But like we trained till our noses bled, and like it was just like, it was hardcore. And Eddie Guerrero and Brock Lesnar were coming in there, and like all the hardcore bodybuilders, they shut down the gym, and we'd been there training with those guys, right? And so like I was exposed to that at the young. It was like train hard, work hard. Like it was just it wasn't a good life for an LA Fitness. Like it was a hardcore powerlifting bodybuilding gym, blacked out, Metallica blaring.
That's the best,
right? It's to this day, I love the technology. I love luxury. But you put me in a gym like that, and there's like this like DNA that comes out of me.
Yep.
Like, and all of a sudden I'm here.
Yeah, but
like all of a sudden the injuries come back.
No one who's maybe, let's just say 25 or even late 20s have experienced gyms like that.
No, not really. They don't really exist anymore because it's a hard, right? You can't make any money at them. And, so like the new style now is, which we'll talk about where the new model that I'm designing, which is a hybrid model. It's kind of bringing a little bit of that back, which there's a need for.
There is
but there's a line to walk.
Yes.
And you need to know how to you need a fishing net big enough to capture a big enough audience to pay for that square footage, right? So you have to walk the line. How do we do that? And it's very tedious.
I think like maybe if you wanted to have like your own gym privately,
that's where you can get, And I think that's something I will have in the future.
Just for your own toys.
Of course. For our own toys and for our own experience and content, and go in there and just have fun, right? And just like, I think it's the greatest meditation you'll ever have that you can ever experience, is just being in that moment. Like you put a bunch of weight on your back and you're trying to squat it 20 times and it's trying to crush you. Gravity's working against you, and it's just you in that moment. There's nothing to me, there's nothing more peaceful than that, as crazy as that sounds to people, because it's like there's nothing else exists. You're not thinking about ex-girlfriends. You're not thinking about bills. You're not thinking about stresses, anxiety. You're thinking, how do I get enough air to get through this? And how do I survive this set? And for that couple minutes, it's just you and that. And it's like a moment stamped in time that nobody can take away. No one else was cheering you on. It was just you in that moment, giving your best, and you look back at it. And I think that's where character is built. Yeah. And I think that's where your relationship with yourself was built, and your belief in yourself was in those moments, right?
I think, this is good timing, because I need a little bit of a gentle kick in the ass reminder, because with my business, I'm just so focused on business right now that my gym has kind of gone by the wayside. Yeah. And I'm on my phone too much at the gym. Yeah. So I really should dedicate an hour and a half 2 hours at the most,
Yeah.
just undisturbed. I'll leave my phone at home.
Yeah. I think to get to that,
You need it.
to the highest vibration that you're going to pull from the meaning of the workout outside of it being like just the physical side of it. Like if you're pulling a spiritual aspect out of your workouts
Yeah.
and you're trying to take yourself, even in the parasympathetic and sympathetic state, if you're trying to hit all of those, like you can't experience that fully being immersed in your phone, or even in the thought of, I need to grab content. That's what breaks my heart.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I need to create content to help other people and to push my message. But sometimes at the sacrifice of that moment.
Yeah.
Right. And that's sad to me. So I try to like experience that at least a couple times a week.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that, because I haven't thought about it in that way. Like I thought about it as optimizing your workout, mind and muscle connection, getting a good pump, getting it a good workout.
Yeah.
But at the same time, really getting into that spiritual aspect as well, because it is spiritual.
Well, I would say this: if you were wrestling a bear, you're going to get the greatest workout of your life, but you're not going to be thinking about the reps and the sets. Like you're going to neurologically, you're going to recruit every muscle fiber.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to get you're going to get the greatest stimulation, greatest overload, neurological overload, and arguably like the hardest you've ever worked in your life. But you're not going to be like thinking about the workout. You're like spiritually connected, like it's live or die.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the greatest workouts exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that anybody that you talk to that's ever been put through like something very difficult, like hard workouts, which I encourage everybody to experience, because I don't think you can actually enjoy relaxation without that other side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I think people that relax too much don't even know what true relaxation is, because they don't experience it. They haven't experienced the other side of it.
Yeah.
So I think that getting away from your phone isn't just about getting away from your phone. It's about getting in that flow state. And it's like, how deep can you go? And are you connected to your body? Are you feeling every muscle fiber, every inch of every rep? And kinetically, is your body moving the way it should be moving? And like, it's an art form.
Yeah.
Weightlifting should be an art form. Training should be an art form, and you should be connected, right? So, and I mean, we can go as deep on that as you want.
Well, it's cool. You said, how deep can you go?
Yeah.
And it's bottomless.
Yeah, it is bottomless. Yeah.
Right.
Like you can go very deep with that.
So here's the other thing. And you used to be a personal trainer. I used to be a personal trainer.
Yeah.
The only way I've found to get into that state is by working with someone that's going to extract that from you.
Yeah, if you've never been taken there, you have no idea.
Yeah, and you don't know.
You have no idea like how far you can go. Like, are you familiar with Dorian Yates?
Of course.
He says it. That's a stupid question to ask. Of course you do. But I guess I asked it just naturally asked that. But he has a saying, you probably see him where he's getting ready to train people. And you know his style of training is similar to Mike Mensner's. It's about like how much damage can you do in the smallest amount of time. Yeah. Right. And I believe in that style as well. Mm-hmm. And we can go into that, why I believe in that. But you have to be very like knowledgeable and to achieve that. Like I can get more out of one set than 99% of the people can in a gym, because they just don't know how to go there. Right.
Yeah.
But he says the thing is like, I want you to picture that I have a gun to your baby's head. And if you do not get every rep out, I'm going to pull the trigger. And it's morbid, but people don't understand how far you can go down that, like as far as work ethic goes, and how far you can take your body.
Yep.
And if you've never had you just can't do it on your own until you've tasted it.
And then if you have tasted it and then you're going back to training by yourself, you certainly pull it back, but you're at a whole new level that you're now, that's now your new baseline.
Yeah. You might walk to the edge of the cliff, but you're not jumping off.
Right.
Right. So like you might get to the edge a little bit here. If you got a big heart and you got a few demons in you and you've got something to prove, you can take yourself a long way.
Yep.
But I think that fuel tank will empty eventually as you find yourself and you start to love yourself a little bit more.
Yep.
But if you've never had someone take you there, you don't even know that dark side exists.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have someone to walk you there, you have no idea how far. And it's not even about reps and weight. It's about connection and movement and intensity of like literally closing your eyes and going inwards and picturing every muscle fiber firing on all cylinders, right? And every inch of from the moment there's tension on the muscle in a full range of motion, never allowing that tension to leave for 1 millisecond. And intensity and firing and contraction through the full range of motion without losing. And when it starts to burn, and the goal is 20 reps, and you get to set, there's no pausing, there's no stopping. It's constant tension, like a hydraulic or like a piston, right? And you're taking that until there's nothing left in the muscle.
How, for the listenership and the viewership right now, how would you coach someone or walk someone to try to get into that state if they've never been there before?
Yeah. So I think I can answer that pretty simply.
Because it's an entertaining idea.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would like to try to do this.
At least once,
Sure.
Right? And then they'll probably never do it again, right? But
Unless
they have a
love
big
it.
goal.
Yeah.
Unless they have a big goal. So my number one rule is never get injured, right? So I always lead with that, right? And this is how I describe it to people. When we're talking about training, I want you to picture you're walking up to 1,000-foot cliff, right? And our goal is to get our toes over the edge of the cliff. That's our goal. But we don't want to fall off the cliff because then we're done. But you want to get your toes off the edge of the cliff. Mm-hmm. So you can't run up to the edge of the cliff and then stop and hope that your feet are just going to stop.
Okay.
You're probably going to walk up to it. So what I mean by that is when you're warming up, yes, you're increasing your body temperature and you're increasing your neurological load. So like, for example, let's use the leg press. It's a great one because everybody does it. Let's say what you think is your workload is 7 plates. It's probably 5 because you're probably moving half reps and stuff. But let's say that it's 7 plates.
Sure.
You don't just jump into 7 plates. Right. So the first thing is you're warming your body temperature up. You're getting blood into your tendons. You're getting blood into your muscles and you're getting your neurological system primed that you can even go to that area.
Yeah.
Right. So as you're doing 1 plate, 2 plates, 4 plates, 5 plates, getting ready, you should be assessing your body on every inch of that rep. Is my back pushed into the pad? How am I moving? Where's my knees at? My foot positioning? Where's the weight on my feet? How are my muscles contracting? Is there anything that doesn't feel right? And if that all feels right, and then we're getting ready, we're warming up and we're getting towards that working weight and we're looking at progressive overload, which is, I think, a term that a lot of people don't understand. They think it's just weight. It's just taking your system somewhere where it's never been before.
Right.
That's all it means. Like it could be a rep, it could be a weight. It's just a neurological stimulation, a muscular stimulation that has not existed in your body.
Yeah. And
it's giving it a reason to grow. We're shocking it into, and it only needs to be that much more than it was before. It doesn't need to be a lot more.
Right.
So how do you get yourself to one? What I'm talking about is don't get injured. And then rule number 2 is don't be a bitch. That's in my all-in training. It's like number 1 is don't get injured. Number 2 is don't be a bitch. And what I mean by that, it's very easy to say, oh, something doesn't feel right. Does it really not feel right? Because if it doesn't, let's fucking stop. Let's live to fight another day.
Yeah.
Or does it just hurt? Like there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So you have to be ruthfully honest with yourself, right?
Yep.
Brutally honest with yourself of like, does it really hurt? Or is it just burning? Is it lactic acid? Is it just pain?
And connected.
And exactly.
A lot of people don't have that good connection.
No. Yeah. And energy's leaking all over the
Sure.
place. Like they're not locked in.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say like, think about a sniper. You're locked in and you're focused. You're not thinking about the girl that's over there that's good looking. You're not thinking about all the problems. Like you're locked into this. This is what you're doing. That's why I say it's so meditative. Like you're just like focused on that one thing. So now that we know that we don't want to get injured, but we want to go right to the edge, but we also have to admit to ourselves, we're not going to be a bitch. And when I say that meaning you have to be real honest with yourself of like, you know that if you could have got 2 more reps or not, you know in your heart, like it's just, you know better than me.
Yep.
You can feel every little thing in your body. I can as a trainer. That's why I can only give you the formula and I can look at your body language and see if energy's leaking. And I can tell if you're actually, I know if you stopped early or not. I'm going to know if I've trained you a few times, I know if you stopped early and what you gave me.
Yeah. And
because I can feel it in your spirit and in your energy and the look in I know when you finish that set and you look at me, if you're really proud of yourself or not.
Yeah.
But there's that 10% that you know that I will never know. Right. I can only get so much information from reading your body language. So now that you know you're not going to be a bitch and you're willing to take it as far as you can and you're going to do it as safe as possible, the next step after that is picking what's the weight load and what's the rep range going to look like to give you some type of variability, right? Because you need to know what's my working weight.
Yep.
And then you need to know there's a rep range. Well, a rep range for me can be anywhere between 5 reps and 50 reps. I believe you can still create stimulation up to 50 reps. Sure. A lot of the data shows after 30 that you're like kind of getting out of hypertrophy and maybe you're kind of going towards like just volume at that point and just a lot of blood flow. But I think that you can train legs up to like 20, 25 reps and you're still getting stimulation. So I'm a huge fan of higher reps when it comes to legs, like pushing past 15 up towards 25. So let's say that it's 7 plates and you know that somewhere around 20 is your working weight. But, you know, are you familiar with reps in the tank, like RIR, reps in reserve? So like you're usually going to want to go like to like 1, meaning there's might be 1 left in there.
Yeah.
And to me, that's pretty much failure anyways. Because that last one, like you kind of got to go somewheres where like it's like death mode, right? And you don't know what's going to happen on that last rep. Something could let go. And you have to really think, is that really worth that last little bit?
Yeah. Well, realistically, I guess like that last set, you will accomplish failure.
Yeah. You're pretty much there anyway.
Yeah.
Right. You're pretty much there anyway, because I could literally just like tempo wise, like through the concentric movement, just like slow it down a little bit
Sure.
and you reach failure that much faster.
Yeah.
So like failure for some people is just pumping until it just ends. But I could get almost the same amount of stimulation in 3 or 4 reps less just by slowing down my eccentric and concentric and maybe even adding an isometric hold near the bottom, like just for a millisecond.
Of course.
Like just staying controlled, not bouncing. So like think about how do I go full range of motion where there's tension on the muscle with the most amount of weight for the most amount of reps without stopping at any point in time and getting the most amount of recruitment of the muscle fibers. Yeah. And that's going to get you to that level. Right. And then you need to think of, you're not going to get to that level with happy puppy thoughts, right? Like if you have anything that's ever happened, if you have like some pain, you've had heartbreak, you've been doubted, you've been abused, and you can use that energy source, that's going to get you there. Yeah. I can externally yell at you, but I don't think you can truly reach that without something internally like, I'll fucking show you. Yeah. Like that little voice that's been holding you back or whatever it is that like, I think that's where you really achieve that, right? Where you're really taking that there and tapping in. And I think that's a beautiful thing as a man. We can talk about that too, because we're going to talk more about, like, I think that I'll drop it here actually early. Last year I released 39 lessons for being 39 years old. And it went viral on TikTok. One of them's hit 3 million views. Nice. Now. And, I gained like 140 followers, like in those 39 lessons. Yeah. And this year I'm doing the 40th lesson. Good. Cool. And the 40th lesson is that energy can't be created or destroyed. And I think that the best thing that'll ever happen to a man is the most painful thing that will ever happen to you. And if you use that heartbreak, if you use that pain, that's scared, whatever it's been, and you funnel it through just like through a hose and you hyper focus it on something and you utilize it in a positive manner, you can move yourself light years ahead in any aspect that you want in life. Or you can take it out on food, you can take it out on alcohol, you can take it out on girls, on pornography, and in a negative way, and you can spiral downwards. Sure. Or you can use that fuel. And if you have some source of that and you can apply it to your training, if you're trying to like really train hard, I'm talking about, and you can tap into that, I think you can take yourself places that people can't even comprehend. Well, that'll be a nice segue into the next part of this conversation because, let's talk about the masculinity and all that stuff. Because as I was saying before, like it is hard to claim ownership to being a man nowadays. Yeah. And it's tough. It is. And to be able to tap into that in and of itself is a challenge. And I don't think a lot of guys are being taught how to do that. Yes. And a lot of guys are being taught to embrace those emotions and show them and be, it's okay. But it's like, no, you know what? You can use that in a different capacity. So let's talk about that in the next segment. Yeah.
Brandon! Something happens inside us when we get inspired to change ourselves, change our nutrition, our fitness. But we really do need to visualize to see and feel how we want to be. And for that, we need a plan.
No, you need a plan.
I want you to say. We need a plan. We need a plan.
You said we so I don't know.
Brandon Coates is the author of the 30-Day Challenge to a Healthier, Happier, Stronger You. Let Brandon into your lives for just 30 days. It'll be epic, I can promise you. Because for some of you, maybe it is time to bust out of what you are. It's the 30-Day Challenge to a Healthier, Happier, Stronger You. Available direct at BrandonCoates.ca. And go behind the scenes with Brendan for each and every episode of the Gut Gang Podcast. That's available everywhere you get your podcasts. Brandon! I think this podcast is going to be fun, pretty fun, and different than the other podcasts.
So I was talking to Ron about my frustrations and challenges and just how to upgrade this whole production. And I was like, do I buy more DSLR cameras or do I buy another iPhone? Because the quality is that amazing. They're nuts. Yeah. And then he was like, well, you don't really need to buy 2 of the same iPhones, but realistically.
Well, my friend said yesterday, so a guy that I shoot a lot of content with, he does all the stuff for One Health. Yep. So Connor is like one of the, like his ability to edit and shoot is nuts. Like it's crazy. And he said yesterday, he's like, if you're not willing to spend now like at least $4,000 on a camera, go buy the cell phone. He's like, it's just so much more versatile. It's easier. And the quality of the new iPhones is like, there's no point until you cross, like whether you're using a Canon, a Sony or whatever you're using, like until you're ready to cross that mark, like there's no point. And even then, like if you don't know how to use the camera and you're a great editor, like
all of the features.
Like, yeah, like unless you're out shooting like night commercials, like what are you, like we're just doing a podcast, you know what I mean? Or even like your fitness content or whatever. Like I was saying this yesterday, like we were just talking about technology even now. And I was just like, if you really think about how mind blowing that like the phone is,
insane.
The camera, you can do emails, you can do blockchain, you can do all your banking, you can connect to social media and go around the world, go viral.
Yep.
And in your pocket.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't work quite right, you get frustrated. You're like, hey, like, hold on a second. Let's just be grateful for this magical device that you can connect with and access to information. That's why when someone's like, I want to start a business, I'm like, you've never lived there's never been a greater time to be an entrepreneur.
Yep.
You have like payment providers. You can build a website in like 5 hours. Like even if you're a moron, you can still build it.
Yeah.
And then you can learn how to like build a rocket and fly to the moon almost just on YouTube.
Well, and if you really want, you can contact someone online in a different country and get them to build your website
for 15 cents.
Sure.
It's right? Unbelievable.
No, you don't need to use the
like,
fax
I think
machine.
people need to just stop for a second and think about the time we're living in. Because everybody's like, it's the craziest. And I'm like, okay, like, yeah, because it's loud and we're so connected.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about that in masculinity, because that's my opinion. I think there's just one side's a lot louder than the other. I don't think it's actually as, I think you'd be very surprised when you start talking to people how they feel about this topic. Overall, I think you'd be very surprised.
I'm going to lean in the mic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. I remember hosting a live lecture a few years ago, obviously before COVID.
Yeah.
And it was, I can't remember if it was men's health or women's health, because obviously it was about hormones.
Yeah.
And I presented a few clinical published articles showing the significant decline in fertility, the significant decline in birth of boys compared to girls, as well as the significant decline in testosterone as a whole in society.
Yeah.
And these are all reputable, like these are real findings.
Yeah.
And then and you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to say it because this is my podcast and I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
So I was very diplomatic about it, but I said, isn't it interesting that we live in in today's age where there is a lot of confusion with identity, and boys are feeling feminine, girls are feeling masculine, and it's just interesting.
Yeah.
And that's all I said. But then I continue to just talk about we're being exposed to xenoestrogens and chemicals in the water. Girls are developing puberty in 6, 7, 8 years old, which is insane. Boys are developing differently. So that was the pretense of the talk. And it's all fair, right? It's all realistic. And of course I get 3 complaints afterwards, emails. And the complaint.
There was some consistency in the 3 complaints.
There was, oddly enough.
They're all in one camp.
Yeah. And so that camp, they were all, interestingly enough, they were girls who were lesbian.
Yeah.
And all 3 of them, interestingly enough, were in school gender studies.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that got offended.
Of course.
And they're the ones that are they were here to argue.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so then I referenced Paul Chek. I'm sure you know who that is.
Yeah.
I referenced one of his lectures and he referenced one of the same studies that I referenced talking about that. And, no one's, well, I'm sure people are bashing him and probably bashing that video and that lecture all the time. Right. Yeah. But at the same time, so this is where I'm going into masculinity, because there is a decline in masculinity. And we're not talking about douchebag behavior.
They're not even the same conversation.
Being a playboy and fucking around.
Yeah.
And no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about true, honest masculine responsibilities and being honorable and working hard and being of service.
Yeah.
And that's why I said that it is hard, because those responsibilities, they're tough.
Yeah.
And if we are being point blank and being honest with society, like, yes, boys are becoming a little bit more feminized. I'm blaming the environment, toxins, parenting, things like that. But at the same time, like, kids being born today are being born behind the 8 ball because of sickness and weakness of genes, etc. So that's a factor. But at the same time, like, you can try to embrace your masculinity. You can try to go to the gym. You can do those things. But that's where I said, like, it's hard. And I think it's almost easier to just accept and maybe go the other way. Mm-hmm. And that's why a lot of guys are turning feminine.
Yeah.
Not here to insult or make fun or offend anyone, but it's just
feminine energy is beautiful, bro. So is masculine.
Of course.
We need each other.
Yeah.
It's all connected. I kind of think the divine is equal. I think it's both.
Divine 100% is
equal. I think it's masculine and feminine.
Yep.
And I think that if you really start to talk to true feminine women, they're desperate for masculinity and for leadership. Like desperate. They're just not saying it, right? And I think it's important for us to identify what masculinity is. And then more importantly, I think that it's just as simple as this. The closer you get to nature, the gender roles just divide and they just accept who they are. When shit gets really tough and there's a wolf or a bear to fight, your natural response is going to stand up and she's going to get behind you.
Yep.
Right? If there's snow that needs shoveling, like if there's roads that need building, if there's work that needs to get done, you're just naturally going to want to protect and provide and be very proud to get up early and go work.
And you just said it. That sense of pride.
That's what it is. That's what men want. We want to be respected and we want to feel like we're needed. Like if you don't feel that like I'm actually needed and people respect me and I'm of service and I'm providing, you're going to lose your way. Men need that more than anything. And then the closer we get to society, the more we just become, because like you soften people and there's not really there's no natural role of like, where do we go and what do we do? Right. So I think the softer the society we've created, the only reason we can even have this argument is because masculine men, they created insulin. They built the roadways, they built the roads, they gave us electricity, they dug oil out of the ground, they've made cars,
right? And
they've created this soft environment that we can even have this conversation. Because if there was a tornado coming, or there was a typhoon, or there was a flood, and there was no electricity, and there was no homes, and it just came, grab what you can and go, that's not even a conversation anymore. It's not the only reason we can even have this conversation. The reason people have all the worries they have, the anxiety, the depressions they have, is because they don't have enough problems in their life. They have time to think about that stuff. Like you could be super depressed and down on yourself. And if life gets really tough and there's a tornado coming, you're not going to think about it. You're running for your life. You want to live more than ever. And that goes to the gender roles as well. Like to me, masculinity, I've always pictured it as the lighthouse at the edge of the ocean. The ocean gets crazy and it smashes against it. And that's what masculine energy should be in a household. So when they say men shouldn't cry, I don't agree with that, but I think men shouldn't just sob over anything, because like the kids and the women, when things get tough, they need to look to somebody to say, is everything going to be okay? Yeah. And even when you're breaking down and you're scared, you need to let them know everything's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. We're good. It's going to be okay. Yeah. Everybody needs that. I'm getting goosebumps because that's how I know that's true. That's how I know that's true. And for us, like as men, like you have to have moments in your life where you release that and you have to go out it, but to like, people need that strength. They need to know that when there's a death in the family, when there's financial problems, when there's abuse, when there's whatever, that somebody's going to be there. And it's about spiritually protecting, emotionally protecting, physically protecting, providing financially, and creating a safe space that those children and that women can come up and elevate.
I'm going to blame Hollywood in this little bit of a capacity here. Because movies say, oh, men should be able to cry and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think a lot of men are getting confused, especially when it comes to being in relationships. Been there, done that. I showed my insecurities and weaknesses, and I thought that
talk to the tree, bro.
Yeah, but I thought at sometimes
seriously, women don't need to hear that.
Exactly. And I was convinced that if I did show emotion and tears, that would make them feel, oh, Brendan, it's okay. Wrong.
She was told that she was supposed to want that.
Yeah. And so when should a man, or when is it sort of appropriate for a man to be emotional, and when should a man show rigidity and strength?
Okay, let me back up for a second. I would say that sadness, vulnerability, and anger, they both have a right? So would you say that a man should be able to let his anger out?
Yes.
And just throw it all over his family, and just beat his kids?
No.
So why should he be allowed to just cry all over them? So so is one emotion more valuable than the other? Because to me, anger is I think it's more valuable than anything.
Well,
as long as you control it.
Yes, that's what
like
I meant
if I'm
by
angry.
Yeah.
Like I'm angry I'm pissed off at my financial situation. I'm pissed off. I know I'm capable of more, and I've been beat down and I have all this frustration. We're told like suppress that, just shove it down.
Yep.
But what if I take it and I build it up and I actually embrace it and I put it through like a funnel and I put it towards my working out. I put it towards my reading. I put it towards my learning, and I put it towards my business. And all of a sudden I move the needle forward on society and I release that energy in a positive way. And it's the same with the emotional side of it, the sadness side of it. Like don't ignore it. Don't suppress it, accept it, embrace it, and push it into something positive.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, when is the time to shed a tear? To me, I think happy tears are beautiful. Like there's times where I've had conversations with people. I'm so proud of you. And I start to they're just like, they're happy tears, man.
Yeah.
It's not a soft thing.
Yep.
Like I will run through a fucking wall. That's not the problem here. It's just an emotion.
Yep.
I'm almost like, I get it right now talking about it because people don't like, and then on the other side, like if you lose a parent or there's it's okay to release that stuff, but you can't just let it just vomit all over the room when you're trying to be the leader of the household.
Yep.
Right. And because that, to me, like, that household should be a sanctuary. That group of friends, if people are looking to you for leadership, you have a responsibility to let them know that everything is going to be okay. So it's not that you can't release those emotions. It needs to be released in a controlled environment. It needs to be put out in a positive thing. And I don't think wasting it's a good thing. I think just crying over nothing is wasted energy, because you can use that in such a powerful aspect, such as in the workout, such as in your business or creating or whatever it is. So I think that it's important to recognize that it's there, to not ignore that it's there. So when people say toxic masculinity, I actually think toxic masculinity is weak men, that they feel not heard. They've been cheated on. They feel like they don't have their fair share. They feel like the world owes them something, and they don't have a purpose. They don't have a meaning, and they feel vulnerable and they feel weak and they don't feel heard. So they lash out, right? And it comes out because when you feel heard, you feel powerful, and you feel comfortable in your own skin, you don't have the need to vocalize that, right? And you don't need to use anger and aggression on people. You just are. Like you said today, like you felt an energy of like, I feel like I bring that presence to a room. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I get from females all the time is like, there's this crazy masculine energy, but I feel safe around you.
Yeah.
Like I feel safe, like spiritually and emotionally. I know you're never going to like say mean things, abuse me, or use your strength against me.
Yeah.
Like you control it. Mm-hmm. So it's just like control. And that's a beautiful, man, if that's not the most beautiful thing in the world. Like Jordan Peterson says that like a rabbit's not virtuous because a rabbit can't hurt anybody. Virtuism is when you can hurt somebody and you choose to do good and you choose to control it and you choose to be that safe space. And I think that's what masculinity is. It's stability, right? Like, have you ever heard, I don't know if it's a quote or a saying, they say like masculine and feminine. It's like masculine energy, a representation is the glass, and feminine energy is the water. And an empty glass is useless. And water without a glass is everywhere. Yeah. Right. It's uncontrollable. It's going to just, so like, I think that's a great, and I think as a good man, you need to be strong enough to never crack under that pressure. Mm-hmm. Right. And to bring that energy, and we need each other. And it's just it's such a shame that we have gotten to the point where we're trying to like be the same and then push each other apart when we need each other. Women are the most beautiful thing. They are like my mom. I had this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine's wife. She's so funny though. Her name's Karen, but she's the sweetest person I've ever met in my life. No, I'm like, your name's not Karen, right? You've cracked the mold.
moving forward, for everyone that's named Karen, I'm not going to apologize, but it doesn't mean that you're a Karen. I think someone just decided
I don't know where that came
to pick the name
from, because my cousin's name's Karen. And she's also the sweetest person I know. So it's like the two Karens I know are like the nicest people in the world. So I'm like, I feel bad for them. Yeah. But I was saying to her about, this is kind of interesting because like my mom is the sweetest person on this planet. I was blessed with the most beautiful mom. And like even through all my struggles when I was going through COVID and all the lockdown, she would just message me every day like, oh, I wish I could hug you. I love you. She'd just keep pestering me with this love. And I'm still dealing with it. So you can see I get emotional about it because like I wanted my mom to text me and say, I didn't raise a fucking pussy. Oh, kill him. But I've learned over time that wasn't my mom's role. Yeah. Like that wasn't my mom's responsibility. My mom's responsibility was to accept me no matter what, where I was at, and give me unconditional love. And I think that's where the masculine can get out of control when he hasn't been loved. And I think we want to be accepted and loved. And I think that if he's never had true feminine energy love him, that's where that divide happens. And that's where that hate and that red pill content starts to happen. If women are, no, because all good and bad begins, in my opinion, begins and ends with men. Like, if you don't want women on OnlyFans making all this money, stop paying for it. If you don't want pornography to exist, stop paying for it. If you don't want women to start like going after men with like whatever it is, like, you have the control where spend your dollar where you want to spend it, and give your attention is the most valuable thing. As a man, your attention is the most valuable thing that you will ever have. And where you give your attention, you can just throw it away, or you can give it to someone that deserves it.
I'm so glad that you just looked into the camera and you said that, because I was going to say, repeat that.
Yeah.
It is so true. Where you put your attention, right, is just so important.
It's your most valuable thing as a man that you have.
Now, for all the men out there that are chasing the woman, you're not attractive to that woman because you're chasing her. Your attention should be chasing greatness, financial greatness, security, success. And that becomes attractive.
Of course. Why would a woman want anything else?
And so this goes, I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I've been just waiting to spew this out.
Good.
Because I can say this, and I'm not going to say what my background is.
Yeah.
Because remember, we were just talking, like, I'm not sure if I want to say the whole story yet.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
But I can say this with authority. And with regards to OnlyFans.
Yeah.
And this is social media right now, and every woman needs to recognize this. So there are 10s out in the world.
Yeah.
Women that are just 10s. They're
physically.
Oh, just, yes, sure. Physically, right? They're incredible to look at. They're absolutely beautiful. And so they are now sharing their beauty on social media, and then guys are seeing them and they're offering them the world. And so these girls are getting travel, expenses, all sorts of the gifts. But you know what? Though you're a 10, you kind of deserve it. You're a 10. But these girls are sharing their travels and all that stuff. And then other girls who are like 7s and 8s
grinding at a job.
Well,
then they see this.
They see this and they're like, well, I want that. So then they start behaving and acting that way. And then all of a sudden, guys that are lesser quality that can't afford a 10, they start just throwing everything at these 7, 8s, and 9s. Now these 7, 8s, and 9s are getting it. Those guys lesser than that, like they're now unattainable. So then now we've got girls that are 4s and 5s and 6s. They're like, well, I want that. And then now they're behaving that way on social media.
That's a good point.
And then now the guys that no way, shape, or form could get a 10, guys that can't get a 9 or an 8 or a 7, like 1 level guys are now buying 3 and 4s and 5s. Right. And that those girls are getting it. And so every other girl is under the influence of like, oh, I can do that. Oh, he's just there. So what's happened now is all of these women have this sense of entitlement because 10s are getting the 10s, but all of these other guys are in just like a race trying to just, afford these girls. And so there has become a massive hatred between men and women because of social media, and like guys are just trying to buy these girls. Girls are now behaving like influencers and entitled girls, and it's a big mess. And so it's funny that you said like there's a huge hatred now between men and women.
You're right. The beautiful thing though is a monster always eats itself.
Okay. And
I think that it all comes full circle. I believe that purity, honesty, truthfulness, and the divine kind of thing, I think it always wins in the end. I think light will always, if there's any light that exists, it's always going to overwhelm the darkness. And I think that will happen. And I think there's still a lot of traditional values out there, but I think everything you just said all begins with men again. Why are you giving your attention and money to that? How pathetic is that?
You said it. Yep.
Like, can you imagine paying $10 a month to look at like, what are you getting out of that? I don't even understand. As a young man, one thing I wish was told to me is like, all of your energy should be put into yourself because you don't have anything. Like the hardest part about being a man is you have no value. The best part about being a man is you have no value because you can create it. You can literally create whatever you want to be.
Say that again, Ryan Hawkeye. Say that again. And you just
the
stare right into that camera.
I said the hardest part about being a man is that you have no value. You're born with no value. But the best part about being a man is that you have no value. But you can create your value. You can become anything you want. Anything you want is almost possible. 99%. Listen, if you're 4 feet tall, you're not going to make it to the NBA. but almost 99% of whatever you want to create in this world, you can have.
Which leads us to this point. It's going to be hard.
Yeah. But that's the best part about it.
But I don't, that's the challenge. That's guys don't want to put in this work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where's that coming from?
Listen, I think there's a couple. I don't know, man. Like sometimes I feel like I'm special in a way, not in a short bus way, but like I don't know. Like I was born with a fire inside me, man. Like I don't know where people don't have that. Like ever since I was little, I'm going to say this openly and honestly, I've always felt like I was a little bit better than the people beside me. I didn't ever want to hurt people. If you know anybody that's in my circle and you ever have a conversation with someone that's close to me, they'll tell you there's no one more supportive than me. I will inject so much belief into you if you're close to me eventually you just start believing in yourself.
Yeah, but you can't. So that could be stewed as being like egotistical and all that stuff, but it's not. If you look at all the most successful and leaders in the world, they all had that same trait. Yeah. They knew that they were destined to greatness, and they knew that they had something within them that needed to be, exercised and just let out. Yeah. And it's not being better than or anything, but it's being different.
And I can honestly say right now on a scale of 1 to 10, I look at myself as like a 2, man. And I work so hard, guys. Like I really do. But I look at myself like in where I know I'm going to go. Yeah. Like when I think of when I think of myself as like 60 years old and like I'm sitting in that rocking chair, having a nice cigar, still looking healthy, jacked, and I'm given information, I see this stoic figure, this strong man that's confident, that's wealthy, that's loving, that's full of life and full of knowledge. And I want to create that so badly. Like I'm chasing it, and I'll always develop that. Like I have this sense of wanting to become my best version. So I've always had that.
You've got a vision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about someone that doesn't have that vision?
Yeah.
Can they acquire that?
Where
do they need to go looking for it?
Yeah. That's such a great question. And I don't even know if I have the right answer for that. Like I'm going to try to answer that the best that I can, but I don't know if it's right what I'm going to say.
Because this needs to be educational.
Yeah.
And I want someone who's struggling to listen to this and be like, fuck.
Well, I think anybody that's listening to this already has it.
Well,
like if you took the time, if you're this far in right now and you're listening to us talk, like you're a special person.
Or maybe someone is listening and they're hungry.
Yeah.
They're searching
then
for that.
You already have it. So you just need to pinpoint that vision onto where you want to dump your energy. Right. Mm-hmm. So I always to me, like if someone says, I have no desire to want, like, I don't know what I'm going to say that's ever going to make you want that. Now, if you say, I want to be great, I want to be my best version, I just don't know where to start, I can fucking help you.
Yeah.
But if you have no desire, then we're not even on the same planet.
So where was I going with this?
People that want to be great, people that want to move forward. Yeah. But if you don't have that desire.
Right. So a lot of times people say, well, like, I don't know what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And then I always say, and you probably even verbatim.
I can help people with this.
Right. It's like, well, hold on. My question is, if money was not an issue,
what would you do?
Exactly. Yeah. What would you do?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they start thinking, sometimes they'll say, I don't know. Then it's like, well, you're not looking, first of all. Yeah. Like, I want you to look.
Yeah.
Or other times they're like, oh, I would do that. Great. You found it.
Yeah.
So now let's work on that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 100%. That's such a great way to put it, because I think a lot of people think their purpose has to be tied to the dollar, and it's not always.
No,
it's not always,
not at all.
So like if you're lost to find your purpose, I think you can start with, there's a few different ways that I would do this, and we can do an exercise really quick that'll just take a minute you and I can do it together too. And then I talk people through this in a lot of my public speakings, and a lot of people bawl their fucking eyes out because they've never had someone walk them through that before. But if you start with the 3 pillars that I talk about, and so many people talk about this, it's just health, relationships, and business. Everything fits. Financial freedom, business, it all fits into this. So like health could be your spiritual health, your mental health, your physical health, and then your relationships. And I believe that your physical health directly impacts your mental health directly impacts your relationships. Your relationships are largely responsible for the quality of your life. They make up your network, and your network is your ability to get your ideas to spread. Right. So whether that's business, that's about the environment, that's political, that's whatever. If you can't get your ideas, if you don't have a network, you can't get your ideas to spread. And if you're mentally all over the place, people aren't going to want to deal with you. And physically you're a mess. People just don't believe in you. Right. So I think it all starts with physical health, and then that impacts mental health. So like become all you can in your physical health. Right?
So then let's close it with that. Yeah. And then let's do that exercise
in the opening. Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
But let's end with this though. Just saying, if you become all you can in your physical health, and you become your best you can in your relationships, like if you and I become friends, and I just show up for you. Not mean we don't talk every day, but you call me and you're like, hey, I need you, and I'm there. Like, how does that not give you purpose? And then if you try to become the best you can physically, and then in your mental health, and you aspire to be the best in your relationships and show up for the people around you and inject love and positivity and energy. Yeah. And then you also try to chase down whatever your goal is financially and in your business, there's no greater purpose than that.
That being said, if I had someone to lean on or someone that's going to drive me. So there are many cases where people don't have that role model. They don't have that role model, but don't use that as a cop-out, because you do. Yeah. You've got the internet.
Bro,
you've got books.
That's so
podcasts.
Beautiful. It's the best.
You've got
it's the best. We live in the greatest time.
Yeah. So let's segue into that next one.
Cool.
All right. So let's segue into that lesson that you were talking about.
Yeah, because I think that's something that men especially, but everybody struggles with, like when they're coming up with like creating a vision, right? And everybody's trying to find their purpose and their meaning. And like, not everybody, but a lot of people want that, right? They want to figure like they want their life to mean something. They want to have some impact. And I think for men, that's very, very important. But it's important for people to know that it doesn't have to be in the money. It doesn't, like, it can be in almost anything, right? So just creating your highest version of yourself. And it's like, well, where do you start with that, right? So like a lot of people don't know where to start. And so an exercise that I do with people all the time, and it's part of in my mentorship that I do as well, which I take on very few people, because I found that I can only have so much in. People have to be ready to change. Right. So like when I mentor people, it's like they have to be wanting to change. An example would be I'm working with a guy right now that's like makes $10 million a year and he spends it all gambling.
Oh.
Right. And like his problem is like these guys are a fucking millionaire.
Yep.
Like he's so successful, beautiful family, but he just burns through his money. So like his whole trap is just like overcoming this addiction to like throwing his money away.
Right.
So like I like working with him because now I've got him almost a year now, and like we're past it, right? So that's kind of cool. But creating your vision, so we'll do it together, sure. Right? And then the people that will participate, and I don't think the camera guy should do it because he might fall over because he's standing up. But we're going to do.
We want you involved, but don't tip over in a meditative state. You got it? All right, good.
So I think this goes back to like when we were kids, we're encouraged, but kids are so imaginative. Like you have the craziest imagination, right? And it's so fun and it's so full of life. And they're going to be like, the reason kids say, oh, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be an athlete, is because it was put in front of them, right? But for us, as we start to get older, it gets beat out of us because we go get a job at 18. We start working a job. We have all these relationships. We have all these failures. We start to lose belief in ourselves, and we start to get beat down. Society puts us in a line, says you get a job, you pay your taxes, and we lose the vision. And we don't realize that at any point in time, we can recreate who we want to be. Like literally, you just decide at this moment in time right now, you can you're not who you used to be. You're not your mistakes. You're not your failures. And you can decide right now to be a complete different person. And it starts with your thoughts. So control your thoughts, and then how you react, what actions do you take, and now start to move differently and align yourself with that person that you want to be. And you literally now are that person if you continue to act that way, right? So like creating the vision, what I do is I get people to close their eyes. So everybody that's watching right now, this is a great practice. So you're going to close your eyes.
Okay, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah, you do it as well, because it's actually very powerful, right? Because this is a great way for you to find, and it's a starting point. The thing is like when we close our eyes, if you start to picture your ideal self, that's who you're supposed to be. So if you start to look at your body physically, like your body fat, your height, your muscles, the type of clothes that you're wearing, it's an expression of yourself, the type of car that you're driving. And then if you start to think about what does your dream home look like? Maybe it's a cute little home that has the saunas, the cold plunges, and it has a home gym, and it has a library, and it has a little walk-in wine cellar. But that's given to you for a reason. That's yours. It doesn't have to be big mansions. And then you think about your ideal girlfriend or your boyfriend and your kids, and that family centered in the relationship with your mom and with your dad, or with friends, your employees, the type of job that you want to travel. Maybe you're in Costa Rica. Maybe you're in Hawaii. Maybe you're on a ship. Maybe you're in New York looking over Central Park. But we all have these things. So now you're starting to physically, who are you? What do you want to show up? But mentally and spiritually, what type of energy? What type of person are you? Are you full of worry? Are you full of anxiety? Are you stoic? Are you strong? Are you calm? Are you happy? Are you driven? Like what type of energy are you showing up? So now you've looked, what type of relationships do you have? Do you have these kids? Do you have this beautiful wife, this husband, with your family, the type of car that you're driving? And then what do you feel like in your heart? And what are you doing for work? And are you financially free? Is it a small life? Maybe you want to make $100,000 a year. Does that fill your heart up? And then the type of job that you're doing, and maybe you want to take Saturdays and Sundays off. What is it that you want to do with your life? Or do you picture this big dream where you have $100 million and maybe you want to start a charity? And now you're starting to think about what you look like, what you feel like, the type of relationships you have, where you're going with your life, what your purpose and what your meaning is. And if you open your eyes right now, that's exactly who you're supposed to be. That's exactly who you're supposed to be. And that's just the starting point, right? And a lot of people think that they need to have all the answers before they start, but all you need to do is just take the first step. I know that sounds so fucking cliche, but literally, have you ever heard, I can't remember what book it's in. It's a famous quote, but there's a boy that he's lost and he's with a horse and he said, I can't find my way. And the horse says, can you just see your next step? And he said, just take that. Right. And that's kind of what it's about with this. So like create that vision of like, because everybody thinks it has to be like, but what do you want to look like physically? What type of relationships and like, what do you want to do with your life? And that gives you a sense of hope and excitement of recreation and coming to life and something that's bigger than what you are now. And that gives you a sense to want to work towards it. And I think if you have a little bit of hope, like a fucking seed, like this big, that's enough.
Have you read Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to quote Napoleon Hill, because you know the quote too. What the mind can believe and see, the mind can achieve.
100%.
And that's what you just said right there. It's
yeah.
like, so maybe if you are completely lost and you don't know where to go, I would say maybe pick up that book.
Yeah.
Because it's timeless.
It's evergreen. It's timeless. He's got another great book too, Outwitting the Devil. I'd almost argue it's better than Think and Grow Rich in a way. Like
I haven't read it.
Oh, bro.
I know of it, but I've never read it.
You got to. Bro, it's society to a T. What it is a Napoleon Hill interviewing the devil. And the devil loses a batter. I can't remember. It's been like 10 years since I still have it on my bookshelf. But the premise of it, he's having a conversation with the devil and the devil has to tell him his tricks of the world, of what he is. And it's basically about like inaction and
say that again. Slow that down.
Yes. Yeah.
What are the devil's tricks?
Yeah. So the devil's tricks are like, it's like he gets the parents to indoctrinate the children and it's generational negativity, right? So like, it's like procrastination and inaction and disbelief and bad habits and this paradigm where you get stuck in this like limiting belief system of what is possible. And it's like this, and you just get trapped and it's like this downward spiral, like where I wanted, that's the devil's creation. Right. And then it's also in comfort, right? Of like give you just enough that you're comfortable, that you don't, it's not bad enough for you want to change. Right. And he plays all these tricks on people and makes them disbelieve in themselves and that they go after comfort versus discomfort. And they live in this paradigm and they procrastinate on things in their life. And before they know it, they lift their head up and it's too late to do anything.
So you've said this now 3 times, either believing in yourself or disbelieving in yourself.
Yeah.
What about people that just don't believe in themselves?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what?
Because there's a lot of that.
There is. Yeah. Well, I think that it's, I think that the only way to believe in yourself is through provable action. So you need to have something that proves to you that you are not a piece of shit today. And where do you start with that? So like if your dream is really big and you're only going to believe in yourself if you become a great public speaker or you're worth $1 million, that's a long goal before you're going to believe in yourself.
Sure.
But what if you set the goal as simple as says, I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week. And that's the type of person I am. And I'm going to train really hard while I'm there. That sounds so simple to people. But if you do that every week for like a year straight, you're going to be like, hey, I'm the type of motherfucker that goes to the gym 3 days a week. And that's a sense of belief in yourself that you show up.
Could you even minimize that even one more step, even before going to the gym 3 times a week?
Yeah. Yeah. The step is do what you said you were going to do. If you say you're going to read 10 pages a day, you're going to text a gratitude text to your mom, you're going to post on social media, you're going to do 8K steps a day, you're going to drink 4 liters of water, you're going to do 2 saunas a week, you're going to stick to the protocol that this man gave you. Whatever it is, action builds character and it builds belief, right? And it becomes undeniable after a while. Like if you do the things you said you were going to do incrementally and you work up, there's a certain point in time, the whole world could be against you and you're going to be like, no, you guys got me wrong. Like the whole world could be against you and you know who you are. And you're like, no, mother.
Because you're doing it.
Because I'm doing it. There's so much proof. Like Alex Hormozy talks about this. I forget exactly what he says. Like you can chant in the mirror all day long. I believe in myself. I am great. I am great. But like, there's nothing more powerful than just doing the fucking work. Right. But you don't have to think about all the work. Just like start where you are with what you have. And everybody's like, well, you actually do know. People know when they're doing if you just listen to your heart and you listen to the vibration. Are you familiar with the vibrational frequency chart?
No.
Like if you just Google Hertz vibrational frequency chart, like it shows like shame and guilt is way at the bottom.
I think I've seen it.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a real thing. Like if you said you were going to stick to a certain diet.
Can I pull it up?
Yeah, pull it up, please.
Because that'll be kind of a cool little reference. Oh, look at that. Who's that superstar right now?
Yeah, we're on our way.
Look at you.
We're on our way, man.
I saw this the other day. I know I'm kind of getting distracted, but I like this video. What are you talking about really quick there? I can unmute it.
You're your only competition. What you see in the mirror is your competition. I don't know if I believe that. I'm going to tell you why, but I'd like to know if you believe it. In a world where everybody wants what you have and everybody wants what you want, how are we not in competition? Listen, if you and I go into business in the same industry competing against each other, I want to take you out. If you and I are trying to grow our social media following and we're in the same industry, we're competing with each other. If there's a girl we both like, we're competing for her attention. If there's a job position that comes up where you're competing for that job, if we're bodybuilding, CrossFit, baseball, soccer, hockey, we're competing with each other. So somewhere along the line, we decide to soften the message and say, it's just you versus you. You're not competing with anybody. When in reality, it's us versus the world. We're competing against everybody. In a society that's trying to beat us down, how are we not competing to try to climb to the top? Or maybe what they're saying when they say that, it's you versus you, maybe what they mean is that nasty ass voice in your head is going to be meaner than the rest of the fucking world. And maybe we need to learn to support ourselves because the world's already trying to take us the fuck out.
I'm fired up, brother.
I'm fired up.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm fired up.
I fucking fire. Sometimes I fire myself up. Sometimes like you'll say something and you watch it back and you fucking excite yourself and you're thinking, fuck. Like,
no, that's because you're being authentic
I'm
right
just
now.
in the moment.
Yeah.
And I like pull myself. I'm like running, listening to music. And that was the song I was listening to at the time. So I'm like, I'm going to put that over it.
Okay. So what am I searching again?
The frequency chart. You'll see it right here. Yeah.
Is this one
colorful
maybe?
one in the middle?
Or this one?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna make it larger.
This is real, man. So like, just like there's like, have you ever heard of 528 hertz?
Yes.
So 528 hertz is like it's the healing frequency of the earth, right? So 528, they say it like busts like cancer cells and stuff like that. Like you can actually buy beds you lay in, it like puts like by, and then if you like now radio and music is like built on, I forget what frequency it's on, but it's like damaging to your cells, right? And there's like all these different frequencies, but everything on earth is like vibrational. Like we're literally vibrating right now. You just can't see it. And that's why I'm saying when you have a conversation and you're like making love or whatever, you can feel the energy and the vibration going up.
Yep. So
like enlightenment, peace and joy and love and reason, acceptance, willingness and neutrality, courage, pride. These are at the highest point of it, right? Guilt and shame. You look at guilt and shame. So example is this like, so like everybody's experienced this where like, if you just take it to the nutrition, and we can talk about that because nobody enjoys a good meal more than Ryan Hawks. I like my wine. I like a cigar once a week, but it's all balanced out for me. I'm like a 90-10 kind of guy.
Yep.
But I love an experience. Like if you make homemade pasta or a homemade bread, I'm in and we're going for it and it's going to be fun, but I earned it, right? But if it wasn't part of my plan and I'm sitting if you and I are having a conversation or like your mom's in Italy right now and she's having this experience, your mom's experience eating a pizza and pasta and a glass of wine, looking in Italy with a great conversation is a lot different than someone that's trying to drown depression in a dark room with a Domino's pizza and a Big Mac and a Reese's Pieces because they had a rough week.
Can you also please repeat that?
Yeah.
Someone who's trying to drown depression.
Yeah. With a vice of some sort, whether it's pornography, whether it's sex addiction, whether it's cocaine, whether it's marijuana. Like I think marijuana is okay if you're using it to like spiritually, like, hey, we're on the beach and we're having it. But if it's like Tuesday at 11 a.m. and you're trying to escape your problems and you think having a puff of a joint's going to fix it, it's just going to make it worse. Right. So like when you talk about like, back to like just trying to like drown and trying to press down depression and dark thoughts with like comfort and enjoyment, it's just going to create more guilt and shame.
So I'm going to use profanity because you're an alpha male and I'm just going to say it, but it's like depression. It's just feedback of yourself being like, listen, motherfucker, this isn't working.
You're not where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, let's change
your
course.
Actions aren't correct right now because you know in your heart where you're supposed to do. Like when you're completely in alignment with what you're supposed to do, you will not have any of those feelings.
No, there's no room for it. It doesn't exist.
And you have momentum and energy, even if everything around you is coming crumbling down and you're doing the things because you know true in your heart, you're like, I couldn't do any better.
Yep.
Like, how do you have those feelings when you know you couldn't do any better? Even if the whole world's falling apart in front of you, you're going to be okay because you know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in that moment in time. But if you don't do the things, like if you have a couple kids and you have a nice wife, and even if the sex life isn't great, but she's a beautiful woman and you know you can work through it, and you go and cheat on her, you're going to feel guilt and shame, and you're going to feel like you're at your lowest.
So this is where toxic masculinity resides.
That's where it lies.
And this is where healthy masculinity resides.
Yeah, even anger, dude, isn't in a bad spot. I'd rather you be angry than guilty and shameful.
And so masculinity exists on all frequencies.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about healthy and embracing masculinity, we're
top.
embracing the
neutrality, courage, pride, right? Look at courage, man. It's a 200, right? Enlightenment is 700.
And
peace, 600.
So 200 courage. Not a lot of guys have courage right now.
No. And what is courage? That's a great conversation in its own, right? People think it means being fearless. It's not. It's courage is like being scared shitless, but still doing what you know you need to do. And I think that's masculinity in its purest form.
That's fun. Yeah. Being scared shitless.
Well, it's living, bro. Yeah. That's living. I talk about this all the time because like a lot of people reach out to me. If you go look at my TikTok content, you'll see what went viral. Mm-hmm. It's really, people are really struggling out there. And I try to tell people all the time that like your greatest gift is the hardest things that you're going to go through because that's where you find yourself. But like if you and I were going to write a story or we were going to write a movie that would be entertaining, would it all be sunshine and rainbows or be some scary shit in there?
It has to. You got to include it.
Exactly. And like if you think about it, like if you're going to die anyway, like when you think about your life, it's literally like a skid mark on this cosmos at times. Like it's so small. And no one's going to remember all your failures. No one's going to remember you when you're gone. Like the people that don't like you and the people that judge you or you think that are judging you, like all that fear, insecurity, all the guilt you have, all the shame, all the self-doubt that you have, you're gonna die anyway, and it's gonna be gone. So like, why not just like embrace the fear and the full human experience? Like when love comes, just live it fully.
Yeah. When
you're scared, live it fully. When you're angry, embrace it. When you're sad, embrace it. And like, but use it positively and keep moving towards the vision, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get lost because they don't understand they're in that trap. And that's part of what that Outwitting the Devil in that book is about, is like people stick in that guilt and that shame all the time. Right. Like the people that are addicted to drugs, like they're like trying to they had some trauma or something that happened to them and they're trying to like patch it. Like these aren't bad people. They're just like, they're trying to cope and they're trying to self-prescribe and they're like trying to figure out their way and they're like trying to escape reality. And it says downward spiral. You can do it with food. You can do it in so many different ways. And I'm guilty of it as well, bro. Mm-hmm. Like I get off alignment once in a while. Sure. It probably happens to me like, I don't know, a few times a year where it might last like a day or two where I'm just like maybe I miss a workout or something. Like I rarely miss anything. Like I'm pretty true to all the stuff, but one little slip off of where I'm at. And like, I'm like, that's not living in alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing.
But you need those little moments of, I'm not going to say relapse, but you need those little moments where you recognize, got to get back on track.
Nothing wrong. Yeah. Cause you caught it, right? Yeah. That means that you're paying attention.
And so there are a lot of individuals that don't have that skill set to maybe recognize or anything like that. And then also when you do get in that perpetual downward spiral, it's so hard to catch yourself.
Yeah.
But that's what's so good about like books, amazing authors, the internet with podcasts and YouTube and influencers. Like we really do have tools accessible to us.
Ignorance is a choice today.
Totally.
It's a choice, right? Like there's more information than you know what to do with. Like even just someone that just watches this podcast could be life-changing for them.
I hope so.
Right? Like there's probably like 10 different things in here where they're just like, if they want to take it and run with it, like there could be literally someone, have you ever heard the saying that you don't need to be the one that changes the world, but be the one that sparks the person that changes the world? Right. And that just means like showing up for people and engaging and like being you might not be genetically or capable of changing the world, but you might be capable of sparking the seed that changes the world. Mm-hmm. Right. And you can do that at any moment in time. And I think just by living true, in your heart, man, like if you, like, when you're doing wrong and right, Like people are always trying to look for the answers, but if you just stop and you just go inwards for a minute and you're just like, how do I feel with that decision?
Yeah.
Like when you treat somebody unfairly, you have a conversation and you act out in anger and you know they didn't deserve it. Like you can feel it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, fuck, that's not who I am. That's not how I didn't treat. I have to call them and make it right. Like call them and make it right. Or if you said you were going to exercise and you didn't exercise, if you said you were going to send 10 emails and you only sent 8, you were going to post on social media 3 times for your business, but you didn't do it. You were going to call whatever it is that you set out to do, like, and you don't do those things that you know you're supposed to be doing to get where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, in your heart when you're not acting in alignment with who you are. Right. And if you don't have that in you, then I would say that you're probably a psychopath of some sort, like probably like verified, like you probably are, like, because I think you just
because
have
everyone's got it.
It's an intuition, man. Like most humans are good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad and there's a lot of evil and there's a lot of damaged people. But like that's why we were talking about masculinity and where the world's going. Like I try not to base anything off of social media. I try to base it off my daily interactions with like people I walk down the street and in the grocery store. And like,
that's a good,
if you just start saying hi to people and smiling at them, especially me, bro, you should see the response I get. Because people like think I'm, especially when I was huge, I know I still look kind of big to the average person, but I'm really not in my mind. But like when I was really like, people automatically just judge you, right? Like, oh, he's egotistical, he's whatever. And like, so when I smile and I light up like a tree, or I'm like nice, or I'm kind, or I compliment somebody, like I see people, like I'll compliment them and they're just like, they're frozen. Like, they're just like, what? Yeah.
Wire
like,
glitch.
Yeah. Like they don't, it takes them a minute to like, that somebody even recognized them as a human and was nice to them. Right. And it's, so I think that you should judge the world off like your little, like the world's just loud, man.
And you said it. Don't judge actions through social media.
No.
Yeah. Just do it your close circle, and then that'll give you a real good idea.
It'll give you a good idea of the people around you. You get a good judgment. Like all this stuff right now with like gender and political stuff and like the vaccinations and medical and like all the conspiracy stuff that's going on. Like if you really just like look at like the 20 people that you know and you start talking, you'll be like, oh, and I'm not just talking about in your bubble, but just like people that you know, they might have different religious or political outlook, but most people are fairly central.
Well, and like that being said, if you do kind of do a little bit of market research or something like that within your circle, you have maybe 20 conversations or whatever, even probably less than that. But then you get to really fairly decide what you resonate with. But when it's being just exposed to you on social media, it's almost impossible to make a proper,
everybody's trying
decision.
to get clout. Like even us, we're going to clip this up and we're going to like the thing that's controversial.
Clickbait. I'm going to use it.
Yeah. Right. 100%. So like, everybody's trying to get their moment in the shot. Everybody's trying to get their voice heard, and people are like, we'll do it at any cost, like any means necessary. And half the stuff that's probably going around, they probably don't even mean it sometimes. They're just trying to like cause problems and whatever. So like, and then like, as far as like all the stuff that's going on in the world, I don't think half the fucking people believe any of the shit that's running around. I think it's just like, what has happened is like, if you're a hardworking person and you have a good heart and you have a really good home life, you're like, I don't want any part of this. So like you read the comment or you see the post on social media and you just move on. You don't even fight against it. When in reality, I bet you like 90% of the people that don't leave a comment would disagree with some of the negativity that's out there. They just don't want the problems. They're like, hey man, I worked 60 hours this week. I can't wait to get home and see my wife and my kids. I'm like, I'm barely got any energy left. And I don't have time to like engage in negativity on social media and comment against your whatever. But we're being backed into a corner now, I think, where people are starting to stand up against like stuff that's happened to children and political stuff and like what the government's doing and all these different things. So I think people are realizing like, fuck, I got to get involved. And I think you see it happening all the time.
You know what? That's where, and we were talking about this briefly, but that's where self-employment comes in, really. Because if you are self-sufficient,
then you're free.
Then you are.
Yeah.
You're not relying on the bullshit system and all that stuff.
If at any point in time you saw something you wanted to share on social media, or you wanted to make a comment, or you wanted to say something or support something, and you thought twice about it because of your job or because of the people around you, you're not free.
How many people does that?
I would say it's over 99%.
I know we were just saying, like, thank God, like you're talking about maybe doing a little vacay in the wintertime, and same with me. Like, thank God we're both self-employed.
It's a beautiful thing.
But
It's
at the same
I don't know
time-
what your trajectory of your self-employment was. I've been through a lot, bro. Like I've lost everything multiple times.
And I was going to ask, like,
Scary,
how
bro.
many times have you ate shit?
Oh, like still to this day. Like I'm open about it. Like, I mean, I'm just like, just even from what I came out of from the pandemic and everything that I went through, right? And all the struggles, like there's many months where you can make $30,000 and it's just enough to like get by.
So let's
right?
talk about this. I'm going to pull up this picture here because this one here, I think you were eating shit currently, or you had been dealt a huge pile of shit.
Yeah. So this is kind of crazy actually. So I just got back from Hawaii from that, I think the day before that.
Okay.
So I had started about 4 years before this photo was taken. So just for context of this photo, I'm standing in the middle of Athletic Culture, which is a fitness facility in Barrie, Ontario, that I'm the founder of. And so that was the day before. You can see they're starting to put in the plumbing pipes. You can see all the runs beside me. That was the day before they poured the concrete on the floor. And so it was a big day. We were like really starting to move construction forward. So you can see I'm pretty happy there.
Yeah.
But before I got to this photo, so I was a personal trainer for 15 years. I became very successful at it. Made a great living. Life was super easy. I was just bodybuilding. And when you have a great physique, personal training is easy because everybody's like, it's kind of like
They
driving
want
a
that.
Ferrari.
I want that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you can try to talk about knowledge all day and people are just like they look at you and they're like, whatever you're doing, just give me that recipe. And so like my life was easy. You know, I made a good living doing it. You know, maybe a few $100,000 a year at my peak kind of thing, like personal training one-on-one. And that was before like the online stuff kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I always wanted to build a gym. And this is where I realized how aware I was because I watched my friends. I had multiple friends start those personal training studios that were like 2,000-3,000 square feet. And all they did was bought themselves a job.
Right.
So now they got like $2,000 or $3,000, $4,000 in rent,
Locked
some
in.
debt to all the equipment, and they're still just personal training. It's just now they're making less money than they were when they were paying $1,500 at a studio.
Mm-hmm.
But it's theirs, right? So for some people, that's cool. That's what they wanted. And then the next level up was at like 8,000 to 10,000 square foot, where it was like a half shot dream kind of thing, where it's like, I'll just take the easiest route. And like, instead of like trying to do it properly, because I needed to raise millions of dollars to do that. Right. So, but then the thing is you can only fit a few hundred people in there. So like and you're competing, you're like, I need to charge $50 or $60 a month, but then you can go to Good Life that's $25,000 for like $40, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like people people will support you for a while, but people are going to do what's easy and what's more valuable over time, right? And then you look at the other end of it, you go right up to the top, you go to like a Lifetime, and it's like 100,000 square feet and they're charging, it's like, okay, well, that's a $20 million startup. And that's not even aligned with like how I live my life and what I do.
Right.
So I knew right away, I was like, okay, like I need to be somewhere around like that 20 to 30,000 square foot. I really want to there's nobody, if you look back through the trajectory of like gym culture and gym history, like in the 70s, and then coming up into the 80s, it was like the hardcore like bodybuilding gyms and stuff, right? Like Gold's Gym, and then World Gym was founded. But like gym culture was like, we hadn't tapped into that regular person that wants to go to the gym 3 days a week.
Right.
And then if you start to look, you'll start to see like, this is where like the LA Fitnesses, the Good Lives, and then like even the epitome of that's like the Planet Fitness charge $10 a month, 10,000 members, but only 500 come. Right. And it's like, well, it's only $10, so I won't cancel it. So it's a genius business model, but horrible for like doing what's right.
Yeah.
And we'll just throw pizza in there once a month. People are like, okay, like I eat pizza once a month, I get my $10.
Insane.
Right. So like, that's like the epitome of like that business model.
Yeah.
But then there was like, well, where is it for the person that loves going to the gym? Like, where do they go? So they start going to like the CrossFit gyms, the hardcore bodybuilding gyms, and then they go to the Good Life that's close to their house. And, you know, they come in, they put their headphones on and they create their own environment, but it's not for them. Right. So like in business, a lot of times people are like, I think the sound of a dying business model is like, everybody's going to love this. Right. Unless you're selling water, but like you need to have a customer that like, because like if you love it, man, you're going to try to convince everybody. Those are like your marchers. They're out there telling, like, you've had a customer, you changed their life, a client, and they're going to tell everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, when I was trying to create, I was like, what would I want? So, you know, I was like, at that point in time, bro, I didn't even know anything about building a business plan, financial charts, how to build a pitch deck, how to raise capital. I had no idea about how I was going to do it. But one thing that I did know is I knew exactly what equipment I wanted and what I wanted the energy to be like.
Right.
Like, what would people feel in their hearts? And so the first thing I started with before I even started like writing down like branding, like everybody, you hear people all the time in business, like I got my logo and everything. And it's like, but they don't have like a business model, right? Like they really don't know who they're servicing or anything like, so they're kind of like working backwards, right? Now, if you have a great name or a logo, I'm not discouraging you, but like, so what I did is I literally I sat down with a Hilroy notebook, still have it. And I just wrote calves. And I was like, okay, I want a donkey calf raise. I want a seated. I want a standing. I want a vertical. And then I was like, okay, hamstrings. Well, I got to have lying. I got to have standing single leg. I got to have kneeling single leg. I got to have seated. Okay, like what else should I have? And then I was like, well, I got to have all these leg presses and all these hack squats and belt squats and pendulum squats. And so I started like with the bodybuilding. And then I was like, well, I really like, now I'm kind of going towards athletic training. I was like, I got to have a turf. I got to have a track. Got to have skier. So I just started building the equipment that I would want. And then I was like, well, and then I started looking at the ideas of like, just looked at, instead of reinventing the wheel, what's the square footage going to be to host a certain amount of members? What would I charge for that value? And then I came up with the idea of like, well, who's the customer that's going to like, who's that ideal customer? So like, who's the bullseye? Think of it as like a target, the bullseye.
Yeah.
And then, so you're always going to have like 3 to 4 tiers of customers. You're going to have like the bullseye, the person that shows up and uses it every day, and they bring at least 5 to 10 people with them because they love it and they tag you on social media every day, but they use the shit out of your gym and beat up your equipment. And then you have your next one. So my ideal customer was the man or woman that's like 35 years old, that's been going to the gym their whole life. They go 4, 5, 6 days a week. And they're the person in their circle that everybody goes to for nutritional information, that looks for motivation, inspiration, training idea. And everybody kind of like makes fun of them. Oh, that's Ryan. All he does is go to the gym. He's a meathead, whatever. That was the ideal customer, right? Mm-hmm. And those people weren't being serviced in the market. And they're still not to this day. There's a massive opening still, which we can talk about, right? I'm not, I'll tell people my business model anyway, because I know you can't outcompete me. I will take you, I'll slit your throat. Like I say that politely, like I will, I'll outwork you. And I'm because nobody's going to be able to go, there'd be one person listening to this podcast that might have the potential to do it, right? And I'm not saying that negatively. Yeah. But so then we had all of our different tiers, and I was like, okay, like I'm going to do this. Well, what's the next step? So I literally met with an engineer. I did the drawings, because then you got to, what people don't realize, when you build a facility and you don't have your own money and you're asking for other money, like you need to know how much toilet paper are you going to use a month, man? Like, what's the cleaning supplies? You have to estimate the power bill, the water bill, the heating bill. How often is this equipment going to break down? What's the computers cost, the TVs, the sound system, like the paint? Like you have to, like just the construction itself, but then right down to the TVs, the cameras, and then like your software, and like and then your staff and your employment and your HR. And like, it's like, I had no idea. That's why I think it's beautiful for you not to know like all the steps, because if you did, you'd probably get discouraged to not do it. Right?
Should I
yeah,
show that
please
picture
open it
of
up.
the
Yeah,
big one?
show the
So
gym.
this is what you created. So this is what you built.
Yeah, that's actually me standing in the exact same spot as that first photo. Well, as close as I could imagine it was going to be. So that's September 17th of 2020. I get emotional looking at that, bro. So that was
from gravel and
literally from standing in a gym to like thinking about doing it, to grabbing a Hilroy notebook and not knowing how to do it, to just writing it down on paper and then just closing my eyes and making a vision, and then honestly just not not giving up until we made it. And the crazy part about that is like we were 8 weeks from opening the doors when the lockdown came. So that was like back, what was that, March, April or May of
2020.
2020,
yeah.
Right? So yeah, it was like April. So we were supposed to open in June. And so we were like it was wide open construction, like everything was happening. And one day it was just happening, and then the lockdown happened. And the next day that was a crazy time, because like there was no one on the highways. That was like when it first happened, the first lockdown, and everybody's like, and I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, who was just a warrior, because we went through that together. We're not together now, but she's still she supported me through that.
Right.
We went through a crazy time together, but she, I remember saying to her, it's like, oh, it'll only be 2 weeks. I was so confident in that, because I'm like, how do you shut down the whole world for more than that? There'll be more damage meant. I knew from this time, like you can't do, like people are living, everybody I know is paycheck to paycheck, right? Like you can't shut the world down for much. It'll be 2 weeks. And if lockdown really works, then 2 weeks wouldn't eradicate it anyway.
Right.
We're still talking about it 3 years later, right? It's still like, we're going to have to put masks back on.
Yeah.
But anyways, that went on. And so at 8 weeks from when we were supposed to open, and then the head investor actually backed out, and
he backed out because of COVID.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to be a fucking moron, right? Not a moron. I guess I shouldn't say that, because one guy invested in or have a big ball sack, taste, or a lot of money that you want to, that you want to do it. So the head investor backed out, and the bank froze my line of credit, and that equipment lease was 1.1 million, and that was approved with the down payment already made, and they froze they wouldn't approve the equipment. So the equipment was manufactured by Atlantis, and all the other equipment was coming through a company called Live North, and I lied. I fucking had to lie. So Atlantis reached out and said, do you still have your lease in place? And I said, yes. And they never checked the paperwork, and they built it. And, and then, Live North reached out and said, do you still have your lease? And I said, yeah. And they never, I don't know what these CEOs were thinking. And I did it as a white lie to I was like, I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And I went on a mission, and within 7 days from when all that happened, I raised $750,000 from one person, which was enough. And then when that injection came into the bank released the line of credit. And then when the equipment was prepared, the companies reached out and said, like, okay, like, we're ready for delivery kind of thing. Are you ready for acceptance? And I said, hey, like, the line of credit's not there. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? So you can imagine what I'm going through at this point in time, bro. And so I said, well, why don't you just lease it to me directly? And they're like, we can't do that. Well, lo and behold, that's what ended up happening. So I made it happen by all means necessary. And it ended up being a great deal because they got more out of it, more interest out of it. They made all their money back.
Yeah.
They got it all done.
So this is no longer a fairy tale. This is currently existing.
Yeah.
Right. This gym is here.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah. I sold it a year and a half. It's been, this January, it'll be 2 years since I left.
So like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you were eating shit during COVID. Like,
it was crazy.
What the hell?
Yeah. It was pretty crazy. So we made it through, and, got the equipment in there. We opened the door September 17th. And the very first, you should have saw that the very first day I stood right up there right beside the rock climbing wall.
Yeah.
And just had my moment. Cause I'd been up for about 48. I didn't sleep for almost 48 hours. This is what people don't understand, right? Like, if you came in during that time to buy pre-sale, I was driving the forklift, putting the treadmills up on top, bolting equipment down, right? Answering the social media, doing the emails, interviewing, doing about 10 interviews a day, and signing up about 50 people a day, all myself. I was running like, you can look at my legs, dude, how skinny looking they are and stuff. Cause I was just like running.
Well, you're
ragged.
in business development mode.
Yeah. I was just like run ragged, right? Like, I was running. That's where I founded the 4 Life model, was which I now encourage CEOs and entrepreneurs to do, which is 3 resistance training days and 3 cardio workouts over 4 days. So
hold on. So you sold this.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
It's been, it'll be this January 26th this year will be 2 years.
Did that give you a little bit of a cushion to hang loose for a little bit, or?
Not really, because the debt that I had accumulated to get where I was at.
Okay.
I would say, being 100% transparent as much as I can say on that topic, because you have to realize I was sued by the government too for $300,000 for staying open, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like so we had 3 $100,000 fines and 7 $1,200 fines.
Wow.
Because I stayed open through almost all of it, right?
Yeah.
Fought against it. Like, that's where I went viral multiple times.
Wow. Wait a minute.
I just don't have access to those videos because they'd be on the social media of that company, that I don't have. And, so I mean, I was at the very first rally right down in downtown Toronto, with like Chris Sky and all those guys that were right there fighting, right? Because I knew in my heart at that point, man, like, I had a stance that I was standing on. I knew in my heart. So by the time it was all done and I made my exit, I think I was about 20. So I worked. This is what people don't understand, is I worked my guts out for 5 years, and I was $20,000 behind after 5 years. But this is the thing. This is where I said about, like, as a man, you don't have any value, but the best part about being a man, the hardest part is you don't have value. The best part is you can create your value.
All of
but you can't take, this is what, okay, bro, like, listen to this. For the rest of my life, you can strip me naked, take every possession I have, take me to any corner of the earth and throw me in the fucking ditch, and I will make it back. You can't take away the belief I have in myself. You can't take away the skill sets I have, and you can't take away the work ethic and that mantra that I have, that spirit that I have. Like, you can put me anywhere through anything, and for the rest of my life, I have. This is why I encourage young men to go for it. Because once you got it, it's like, oh, you get it now. Like I get goosebumps all over my body because like I became the motherfucker. When I say that, I mean that like non-egotistically. Even we can talk. I have an ego. We can talk. I very much recognize it, use it to my advantage. But like I realized through that moment when I was standing on the top and I was looking down and there was like, I think at that point we were allowed like 80 people. I just opened the doors. There was like 200 people in there. It was just like packed, right?
You did it.
I did it. And I was standing up there and I was looking, and that's when I realized in that moment in time, I was like, if I decide to do something, there's not one fucking thing I'm not going to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Cause like, I just saw myself fight through that. So we're back to like people that don't believe in themselves. It's like, it's the action that makes you believe in yourself. Right. Yep. So now I know that like,
it's the action from that little Hilroy notebook
all the way to
that's where it started.
Yeah.
And what's the saying? A clear vision is still weaker than like a faded pencil.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I love that.
The moment you write it down, at least it's out of your imagination, and now it's on something concrete, and now you're one step closer.
Believe in saying it out loud too.
Sure.
A lot of people are like, oh, keep it close. Like don't, and I get it. Like if you have a vision and you're surrounded by a bunch of like nobodies that don't, with small minds, and you say it, they can crush it.
Sure.
But if you're really confident and like you really believe it, like if you really believe it.
But that's also, that goes to say like, who are you surrounding yourself with?
That's everything.
And
in my opinion.
And if you've got this amazing idea that you want to share with the world, and if you share it with people, your regular circle, and they all say no, that's probably a good sign that A, it can be a good idea.
Yeah.
And B, find some encouraging friends and find some business people.
That's why I would encourage you to say it, because you're going to immediately find that one person that's the one that like in your circle that you want to be close to. And you're going to immediately be able to eradicate the people you shouldn't have around you.
Yep.
By just saying something that's outrageously like almost unattainable. Like if you have a vision and you say it and there's like 7 people in your life, 6 of them that will shoot it down are the ones you shouldn't be around. And the one that supports you is the one you want to be around.
So you got that one friend, and now it's time to find some new friends.
That's it. Yeah.
It can be very, very enlightening.
Yeah. Very much enlightening. You know, at first it's hard to accept. And that doesn't mean you have to cut those people out of your life. You just put distance.
You graduate them.
Yeah. Like if you love your mom and dad, but they're super negative, like for example, I told you my mom's the most beautiful mom in the world. I'm not going to call my mom and ask her for business advice.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to call my mom and ask how to be the greatest mom in the world.
Yeah.
You know, so I know who to ask it for advice from. I'm not even going to tell her, like people can't comprehend some of that stuff. Right.
Yep.
But if you say it, the one good thing about saying it out loud is people will hold the fire to your feet, man. No one wants to see you win, right? People love to say, I thought you were going to start that, Ryan.
Totally.
I thought you were going to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden if you have a little bit of an ego, you're going to be like, fuck, I got to get that done. Else I'm going to be humiliated.
Yeah.
Right. So like there's that side of it.
So you use that to your advantage.
I use it to my advantage, man. Like that's why I said about an ego, right? Like a lot of people are like, oh, no ego. You can't live in today's society without some level of ego. Mm-hmm. But you have to me, ego is a paradigm. A lot of people think that ego is just, I'm the greatest person in the world. No, I'll tell you what your ego is. Next time that you're at a wedding and the beautiful girl asks you to dance and you're nervous and you won't get up and do it, that's your ego, because you don't want to look silly in front of somebody. You put up the camera and you want to start talking, but you're worried about what people are going to say about you and judge you on social media. That is your ego. Mm-hmm. The voice that tells you that you're great and you can do anything is the same voice that tells you don't do that, you might look stupid. Yeah. It's a paradigm. So your ego wants you to play it safe. It'll tell you you're the greatest, but it'll also make sure that you don't ever make yourself look stupid. And so like you have to be able to cut, to me, like you have to use your ego to your advantage. Mm-hmm. And to this whole thing where like people like I've participated in different psychedelics and things like that. And I think there's value in that, but like people try to eradicate their ego. And I'm not saying that it's not, I just don't feel like it's right. Like it wouldn't exist if it wasn't supposed to be there. But I think you have to leverage it. And I think you have to identify it and realize what is it doing to you that's holding it back.
You've got to be able to identify it.
You have to know that, they don't even know it exists.
Exactly.
They don't know it exists. So like what they'll say is like, oh, I won't get on camera and talk about my beliefs because I'm modest. No, motherfucker, that's your ego. You're not modest at all. You just hold your value inside.
Yeah. Right.
So like, it's like you could have a message that could change the fucking world, but you're so scared that somebody down the road that won't even be at your fucking funeral might judge you.
Right.
And that's why you're not saying it. Right. Yeah. So like your ego is the thing that's holding you the fuck back. But it's also like in silence, it's the thing that tells you you're the greatest, but it hides you from the world. You know, and I don't even know, like you can get spiritual in that one as well. I think like you could say like, if you have a really good idea that could change the world and there was like a positive and a negative and evil and a good, wouldn't evil try to like say, hey, don't share that with the world? Like if you were the evil creator and someone was about to bring light to the world and with a really good message, wouldn't you want to like say, like put a voice in the back of their head that says, don't share that. You'll be judged.
Yeah.
I don't know. Think about that next time you're worried about putting out your message.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm saying whether you're spiritual, you're religious, whatever. I'm saying if you were the evil side of the planet, if that exists, right? I think it does. If you don't believe that, that's cool. But if you do believe that, and you were the evil creator, and you saw one of us trying to put out a message that you knew would change the world positively, wouldn't you want to put a voice in the back of your head that says, don't fucking say that out loud? Because if you do, people are going to judge you. Because you know it's going to create good, right? So next time when you have that feeling of like you want to do something, you want to say something, you want to create something, but you feel like the world is going to judge you, just know that maybe that thing's so much more beautiful than you even realize that it is. And it's that voice is there to stop it from coming out, because it's actually going to change the world. Yeah.
I'm glad you clarified that. That makes sense. Okay. So then where does that leaves us to
exited the business, I guess.
Well, yeah. Where you're at right now. Like, what do you? Yeah.
So I exited that, and the saddest part about that is I had to sign a contract that I couldn't do anything in the fitness industry. So like it's kind of a gray thing. So it's like in Simcoe County, which is like all of like Collingwood and Barrie and whatever, I can't participate. That's where I built my brand as far as like bricks and mortar kind of thing goes. Right. But so until January 26th of 2025, I can't do anything there. But now I'm starting to go online. So at that point in time, I had a marketing company with my ex that she has the marketing company now. And it was called Aisling and Co. And so she's like probably one of the most talented real estate videographers in Canada. I'd say she's in the top 5 in Canada, like shooting $40-50 million properties like nuts. Right. Nice. So I was helping her with that. And my friend Dawson, who's my business partner in All In, which we'll get to, he came to me, and he's the most intelligent person that's ever came into my life, like autistically intelligent, like numbers type of guy, right? Sure. Like we're total aligned spiritually and like the way we see the world, but we're so different, like in conversation and socially. And we just like our strengths are so good together. Yeah, because he's super organized and mathematical, and I'm like chaotic and like outspoken kind of thing. Right. And he came to me, and we were both kind of into blockchain, and we were participating, and I was looking at it from a libertarian view, right? At blockchain, like I was looking at like Bitcoin of like, okay, like, you know, like if I wanted to get up and leave this country, like how do I get my money out of the bank? I couldn't take a house with me if I had a mortgage. I just saw the government like lock down bank accounts, and like I saw the government try to shut down my business with a plastic badge saying that they're some medical expert, and the world's going chaotic. And I was like, and then I also know, like, I started understanding the monetary system and the fiscal policies and like how they print money and like the way the tax system works. And I became obsessed with reading like the Creature of Jekyll Island and like all these different, like, what is Bitcoin? And like, I was looking at it from a libertarian kind of view of like, how do I like actually have something that's untouchable? Sure. And so like, that's where I kind of got obsessed with Bitcoin. And then he kind of introduced me to the idea of like blockchain in a way of like, hey, like, look at like what happened in Haiti when they had that tsunami, and there was like $750 million raised, and they say like $10 million got to ground zero, right? Where blockchain could have like showed in real time where every dollar was spent. Totally. And like, if you look at like, say you invest in a publicly traded company, they can easily manipulate the numbers for year ends to make them look in certain ways. Where like, if with blockchain, if that was on a blockchain, you'd be able to microscopically invest from anywhere in the world in real time and look at exactly what the CFO and the CEO, like you could even look from like the debit machine all the way to the bank account, every fucking thing that's happened, like complete transparency. Can you imagine your government having to show every tax dollar that was collected and where every penny was spent? And so that's just it. The technology exists. Why aren't we using it? Make you ask a few questions. They say that they want it, or they say they want transparency. Yeah, on their agenda. Right. Not on our agenda. They want to see what you're spending. They don't. Are there any corporations that you know of, or like, are there any businesses that have implemented it? No, not that I know. Not in that capacity. No, they're still just using it as play money for the most part. Right. But I think that there's a massive market for AI, and blockchain is going to just like change things 20 times fold of what the internet ever did. Yeah. People have no idea, but you have to like be accepting of it, because you're not going to change. So don't fight it. Play by the rules, right? This is the rules that are coming. So the best thing you can do is equip yourself with what's coming and try to learn it. So
this is coming from some dude from Fredericton.
Yeah.
That's never that was proud that you never touched technology.
I never touched a computer.
now-
When I touched a computer too, it wasn't internet. It was trying to learn how to type a little bit, right? I don't think I was I didn't really get on the internet till like Facebook came out.
Yeah.
And at that point, I remember like, it was like, oh, like look at my new outfit or something. Like
That's
there was
funny.
no marketing or anything.
Well,
with it.
now look at you now. Like,
Yeah,
now you're
like
talking
I'm
about-
actually not too bad with technology now. Like I've pretty much surprised myself on the stuff that I've taught myself. And I just became obsessed. I took a lot of courses on how blockchain actually works and like how the actual, like how the nodes actually operate and how a blockchain actually, like the block producing nodes work and
Right.
what the Bitcoin, how Bitcoin actually works, right? Like how is it not hackable by quantum computers that will be out in the next, I don't know, decade or 2 decades, and what protects it, and like how does the network actually work, and like this magic internet money, and why does it have value? And then so I started looking at blockchain from a lens of like transparency
right.
more than of value.
Mhm.
I think Bitcoin's the only true thing that you could look at because it's no one knows who the creator is, right? No one. I would argue it's probably the American government, might have been the CIA. It's a good argument if you look at it from that lens. It would make sense if your dollar's fading. Like if you look back at the Bretton Woods deal, are you familiar
Yep.
with the Bretton Woods deal and like where like the idea of like pushing money around the world? Like Europe was at battle, Middle East was at battle, the whole world was fucking wrecked. And if you read, a great person to follow is Peter Zion. If you've never read his stuff or watched it, follow Peter Zion. Some people argue against his stuff. Few of his stuff is kind of pointless, but it's about like the accidental superpower and why America is the safest place on earth. And it comes down to first principles, which we can talk about, which is like water safety, military safety, food security, land security. Like there's all these things that make America the greatest.
Right.
It always will be the greatest. Even the oil that's in the ground, like it's undeniable.
Right.
Like you can have a great spirit and a great government, but if you don't have resources in the ground,
Sure.
you're kind of limited, right? So he introduced to me, so his background was he started out as a writer and then he became a world-class researcher. And so he was hired by like multiple different venture capital companies to say, where's this blockchain going? Go find the top 100 and show us why we should invest in this, right? So he became an expert in blockchain and we got close. And so we created what was called Sisu Stake. And so like in Bitcoin, you just like basically the system works itself. And then in Ethereum or Cardano and these different things, it's a staking technique. So you actually create a node, which I told you, like a cell phone would be considered a node in a network of Bell.
Right.
And then you stake to that. And that kind of gives that node value.
Mhm.
And that's what we were building. So we were kind of building, but right at the time we were building is right when that big market crash was coming.
Right.
And everybody was on staking all their stuff and selling everything. Because
Yeah.
if you stake it, it's locked in
Yep.
there, right?
Right.
So that's kind of where I got into blockchain. And that was when I realized my willingness to try anything, from being like construction to personal training to building this gym to like doing marketing to like, and some people will look at it like chaotic, like you're trying, and I'm like, but I'm trying to I'm doing what is in front of me at this point in time. It's evolutionary and I'm trying new things. And I had always, in my readings over the couple years of probably like starting about a year before the pandemic came, I started reading and becoming obsessed on wealth. I had this, still have it. Like if you look at my phone, I have like a Photoshop $100 million on my screen because that's my goal for financially is like my net worth. I want it to be higher, but I want to know what it feels like to achieve that. And I'm actually probably going to give it all away in charity and shit, but it's just like, I want to achieve it. Right. And so I became obsessed with like, where's all the real money made in the world? And it's all in like private equity. Right. That's where it's all at. A lot of people like true, like the big money. Like if you look at BlackRock and a lot of these companies, like it's all in private equity. It's using other people's money. Like, cause people don't know what to do with money. Right.
Yeah.
So they're like, fucking put it somewhere. So like, you fucking take care of it.
Yeah.
So I started following a guy called Dan Pena. Have you ever seen his stuff?
Of course.
You know, I like him just for his, just his comments and like, we need that. Like that's, I know some people might call that toxic masculinity kind of thing, but
he says that it is real masculinity.
It's what works for him, right? Like if some people would just coil up and die. For me, I'm attracted to.
You know what? We're here.
We pull up Dan Pena.
Oh, yeah,
if you haven't heard of Dan Pena, like people.
This is going to offend someone for sure.
But that's a good thing. That's where you find yourself. I mean, maybe you'll find something you didn't believe in before, and I think that if you, there he is. He calls himself the $1 trillion man now. It used to be the $1 billion man.
The psychopathic advantages, but his vision and his life dream is to become ruthlessly and thanklessly successful.
Yeah, well, he always says like if you like me after I coach you or after my talks, I did the wrong thing, right? And for me, like I agree with probably like 90% of what he says. There's 10% of stuff that I think is inaccurate, but I still love the guy. Like you need both spectrums.
Yeah.
Right? You need my mom and you need Dan Pena.
Yep.
That's what makes the world great, right?
Yeah.
Like you need that's that balance thing, right? But so I started following him because his whole concept was like to become extremely wealthy really quick is buying business with none of your own money. And everybody's like, well, how the fuck do you do that? And this is the crazy part is it's actually it's not, I shouldn't say it's simple, but hard. So it's really easy to actually make the deal happen. It's just hard it's a lot of volume to do it. So the whole concept behind it is you find what you call like a desperate or a motivated seller. So somebody that's they have a health problem or something of that nature, or they've been in the business for so long and they're just sick of it. Like if you have like 10, $20 million in the bank or even $5 million and you're 65 or 70 years old and you just want to enjoy the little bit of your life that you have left and you have 100 employees and the business is cash flowing, for you just want to get out. But
you're a motivated seller.
Yeah. But like most people that are in business never built their business to be sold. So they can't sell it to a bank. They can't sell it to an investor. They can't sell it to a private equity because the business was built around you.
Yeah.
So like if you leave, the business automatically starts to decrease. So you need to have someone that can come in that can actually build a team that knows how to put CEOs and operational managers and CFOs in place and like actually build a business and get new customers. And the thing is most of these businesses that would go up for sale, like thousands of businesses, if you research this, thousands and thousands of businesses in Canada go up for sale and never sell every year.
And so really if this is what you're doing, you're essentially just a middleman temporarily. You're buying
the business is buying itself.
Well, yeah, you're buying it.
Yeah.
You're putting systems in place and then you're probably
try to resell it. At a higher value. Yeah. That's the whole goal. So people are like, is that what you're doing right now, Ryan? It's like, well, I have a plan to do that. So like, and I share this with people because like anybody can do it. And so we started out the process of like, okay, like how would you do that? And where is the best place to do that? So like this is like a passion project of mine.
Right.
So right now I'm working on what's called All In and I'll get to that in a minute. But after I sold, I'll just back up so people understand. After I sold AK, because I was so viral on social media and I was pushing, I say viral, a few videos went viral. Like we were doing pretty good. People knew who we were around the world. And when people heard that I had sold and I vocalized that I was no longer there, I was headhunted. When I say headhunted, by 3 different people from around the world that are all like wealthy in their own perspective. And they're like, hey, let's do something.
Yeah. Cool.
Right. Because people saw you do it. So when you were saying about like people believe in you once you do something, right? Like you want people to believe in you, but you haven't done anything. But once you do something, the whole world believes in you. Right. So like just hold your pace and like you'll eventually get there. And in the process of doing that, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like maybe I want to back up. And I had this like the partnership that I was in kind of fell apart. I can't talk about that, but it's fucking intense what happened.
Okay.
And so I was like, you know what? I just want to take a break. I don't know if I want to jump back into the fitness industry. And when I do come back, I want it to be the greatest story ever. And so I have a couple projects that like, what do I want to do next? I want to focus on helping men. That's what I wanted to focus on. So I'll jump back to that in a second, but that's what the All In brand is, right? But in the meantime, I'm also designing what I know will be the #1 gym in Canada. And I've got, trust me, I've proved it.
Oh, you're doing it again.
I'm doing it again. Yeah, I'm going to do it again. Probably next year or the year after, I'll probably break ground.
Are we allowed to say in what part of Canada?
Yeah. So like, so originally when I started Athletic Culture, the goal was to do 100 locations. And obviously that didn't happen for a multitude of different reasons. And I can't tell you if I'm going to do 100 locations this time or because I'm being conflicted with a vision right now. And I'm really trying to get clear on is the dream to have, because I want to have multiple citizenships because I just don't trust the government in one area right now. So I have, if you follow a company called Nomad Capitalist on YouTube, it's a great, if you want to see about moving around the world and why you should, like how, like what country should you live in?
Yeah.
And what aligns with your values and like what's important to you. So for me, I'm building a passion project of like having 5 different citizenships and like why I see value in that and around like safe wise of like when I do have children, where I want to set them up for success.
Yeah.
And in the process, I'm building this private equity because once the money comes in, because I'm very transparent about where I'm at, I'm not financially where I want to be right now.
Yeah.
To most people, they'd be very happy about what I've created and even like what happens on a monthly basis for me. But I just told you like my vision's $100 million. So like what I have right now is literally laughable. But so in the meantime, right now I'm building the All In, but I'll tell you about the private equity strategy so that, because this might change someone's life. And I'll just tell you on an overview of a few minutes so you have it. So the basics premises of what you're doing to start out is you're going to figure out what kind of business you want to buy. These are usually boring businesses, right? You could buy like a laundromat. It could be like a brick company that makes bricks and builds stones. It could be a company that makes like wrappers or boxes or these type of containers. It can be anything. It could be a car wash.
Yeah.
Like it can be any company that's cash flowing.
Yep.
So usually that company it'll have a couple different things that you can leverage to buy that. One, it could have assets. So the real estate could be the assets, the trucks, the machinery.
Sure.
Anything that makes the money, that makes the product, that would be considered an asset that has value, that doesn't have debt behind it, right? So that automatically has value in it. And then if there's any cash in the business, that would be considered an asset. And a lot of times the business owner can't get the cash
And
out.
so just really to be clear, like this is usually an older established business.
Yeah, because if the business is, what are you buying if it doesn't have cash flow, right? It has to be producing cash flow.
Yep.
Because people are like, why would I sell a business? I'm like, well, you're thinking that way because of where you're at. But now let me put 10 or $20 million in your bank account. Fast forward 20, 30 years. Your wife has a health issue. You got grandbabies now. You always dreamed to travel in the world. And 2 of your friends just died from COVID. Like, it's like, you're motivated to get the fuck out.
Sure.
And then you go to sell the business, but you realize that big money doesn't want your business because they want the big 10Xs. They want to turn around and then sell the business, and it needs a lot of work because you built a bit shitty business model. What you did was you created a great product that everybody believed in, but you have no systems and procedures. The reason that McDonald's...
They are the system.
They are the system. You hold it together,
Yeah.
right? Like the business, you need to think, if you're a business owner, you need to think about building a business that if you got in a car accident and couldn't work for 6 months,
Yep.
it can go on without you.
Right.
There's so many business models that if the person could not get on the internet, it wouldn't. And I'm in that position right now, even
Mhm.
with what I do, right?
Mhm.
But so many people are like that they are the pillar of everything, and
Yep.
they do not realize that they're very vulnerable because of that.
Sure.
So like you need to start building your business that it could operate without you, right? And you need to believe in other people. So there's a huge opening for that. So you got all these businesses where, and this is the crazy part, when you search the demographics, right? You should get fucking scared in the demographics in Canada. I'll show them, I'll send my chart to you. If you look at the demographics in Canada, it's like this, dude.
Of what?
So all the old people that are ready to retire. And what
Oh.
happens when old people retire? They take all their money off the market. They
Yep.
stop spending,
Yep.
right? They pull all their money off the market and they're not contributing anything, and they get old and they use the shit out of the Medicare system. So all the young people are trying to prop it up. That's why we need to immigrate 100 million people to Canada, which immigration is great here because we need it, because no one's having babies, bro. Like we're so far behind. Like we need more. If you can have a kid, have a kid. I know I don't have a kid. I'm going to get on it. But if you can have kids, it's important to have kids right
I'm
now.
not having kids.
Yeah, no, you should. If you can,
Nope.
you should.
Not
you
happening.
should. And I think that's how we change the world, is we raise these beautiful babies and they go on and change the world, right? So that's a whole nother topic. And I hope God blesses me with a whole bunch of them. If not, I'm going to adopt a bunch of them.
So tell me about this again, this demographic.
Yeah, the demographics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's something that no one looks at, right? Like is the, like when we think about like where's a great country to live and where's a safe place to live, like I think people look at the wrong things. So like one thing that my business partner taught me, and I attribute this to him because he opened my eyes to so many things, is first principle thinking.
Okay.
Which is like, what is the reality of what's in the ground and like what's happening around us, right? So it's not cultural, it's not beliefs, it's like what's really happening. And if you look at Canada, it's like literally like, first of all, when a baby is born, it takes 18 years to make a taxpayer. And they consume so much. So like they're just done. The government's like has to school them. Parents have to spend money on them. And then it takes 18 years. And then you don't even know what percentage of those people are actually going to become taxpayers, right? And then those taxpayers are the ones that actually pay the pension. And those are the ones
Yeah, but
that
hold on. What about like just regular consuming when they're 1 to 18 years old, like consuming shit, cars?
Yeah, so they consume, but they don't produce.
What about paying taxes?
They don't pay taxes.
On everything that they purchase, they're paying taxes.
Yeah, the parents do. But it's the parents' income. The kid's not actually making money. So it's the parents that are the ones that are spending that money. But if you look at like...
Oh, I see. Because they're not like technically contributing unless they've got a job. Yeah,
well, I think so. Like you have consumption-led economy and you have production-led economy,
Okay.
right? So like if you look at like America, like America consumes, right? Like they don't, like China just produces. They don't
Right.
consume anything.
Right.
So that China just makes stuff and then sells it, makes stuff and then sells it.
Mhm.
And Canada and America used to like produce a lot. We used to manufacture a lot.
Yep.
And we made a lot of great
Remember when
products
we were
and
kids?
outsourced all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like something was like made in Canada or like
yeah.
made in USA.
Those Hulk Hogan dumbbells I got are made in Canada.
Yeah.
It says on it, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. No, everything's made. But manufacturing is going to make a comeback. And I can explain why that is. And if you guys do the research, you'll be like, it makes sense what he's saying. But the whole thing that we were talking about, we'll just jump back to like buying business. This could help people because there's a lot of people right now that are maybe they're setting on a little bit of money or they're looking for their next big move. And like you can buy businesses and they're all over the place. Like it's in any industry, anything that you're interested in. You don't have to be an expert. It can be a boring business. It can be an exciting business. Just make sure that it's in an industry that has a future.
I've never thought about it.
But it's the business buys itself.
Yeah.
So like really like if like it's because the business is cash flowing, right? So like for example, like you're gonna buy the business on assets. So the business has assets, liabilities, and cash flow. So like the liabilities would be the employees, even though they make the product, and then any like any payables that you have would be like a liability that you have or any debt that you might have. And then the assets and receivables would be like money that's coming in. So like you have cash flow that's coming in and it's producing cash. So like if you look at a business what would you rather give me money on? I'm going to start a new gym and I need $3.4 million. I have no customers. I have no proven model yet. And I have to spend all that money up front. And then it's going to take 6 years to get the money back. And if I decide to fall off, you're, as the investor, the one's going to have to pull the weight.
Right.
Or would you rather give me money on a business that has a 20-year track record, that has thousands of customers, 100 employees, and it's made $100 million over the last 20 years? And you can look at the money going up.
Yeah.
And then I come to you with a business plan that says, yeah, but they're not on social media. They haven't got an e-com store. We can actually get out of this factory, move it over here and rent. We can sell the building. There's all these different things that we could do to increase the cash flow. So there's all these missing because the person got comfortable 10 years ago, right? And they're like been holding it back because they're just living in a comfortable zone, making their money. I can 3x the cash flow on this and we could exit it. As an investor, they're going to want to give you the money. But the cool thing is like the money from the investor is just to like buy the business. But if you have a motivated seller, a lot of times they'll just give you the business.
Sure. And then you just pay
them back
they're
the
the
cash
bank.
flow.
Yeah.
They are the bank. And then like, so say the business, just to keep it simple, is $1 million. So like usually it's based on EBITDA, which is like after taxes and appreciation.
Sure.
So say the business, they want $1 million and they want like a regular business is going to be sold somewhere between 2x and 5x of EBITDA. And like a tech business could be sold for 20x because they know, like if you're going to buy Uber or something, it's going to increase, right? So like a lot of those companies were coming up, they sell for 20, 30, 40 multiple X's. But like a regular business, they're going to try to fight for 5. You're going to try to get it for 2 to 3. So let's just say it's 3. So say the business is doing $300,000 a year, and then they have $100,000 in assets, which are some machinery and some tools or something. The bank would say, if we liquidated that, it's worth $100,000. You come to an agreement, it's worth $1 million. And the business is profiting $300,000 a year. And the business owner wants to get out. He's already made his money and he believes in you and he thinks he's great. He could easily just sign the business over to you. And then you just start paying him on a monthly basis. He's collecting cash.
And he's even probably consulting to a certain degree.
You want him to stick around. Now he's interested in the business being successful.
Right.
And what happens if you fail at 2 years and you've given him, say you've paid him $500,000?
Nothing. He gets his company back.
He gets his company back. That's how easy it is to do that, right? It's super easy to do. You just have to find a motivated seller and you have to be in a position where you have time to do it and you have to understand the lingo and how to do it. So you have to read, like you have to watch some videos. And so Roland Fraser and Dan Pena. Dan Pena is the motivator and he gives you no details. And Roland Fraser is the total opposite and gives you all the details. Those are 2 people I would follow that will you'll watch 2 or 3 Roland Fraser videos and be like, I know how to do this.
Okay. Roland Fraser here.
Yeah. Roland Fraser. Yeah. Insert Dan Pena there. Those are 2 guys that I would follow on that. And then what I talked about, my friend and I strategizing on, like in 2 or 3 years from now, like where are the big opportunities at? And like, how do we identify that? And this is what gets crazy. We kind of identified off a lot of Peter Zion's work, but also just our own research, that the safest and the next economic boom is going to be Texas. Texas is probably the best spot that you could be, and it's based on energy resources. So in southern Texas, there's a couple of cool points. They have what's called the Perma Basin. So if you look in America, all the oil refineries, all the old oil refineries have been converted to natural gas refineries. So everything that they used to build on petroleum, everything that they used to build on oil, they can now create with natural gas, and they're the only refineries in the world that can do it. And in Texas, in southern Texas, they have what's called the Perma Basin. If you research the Perma Basin, they have like a 70-year reserve of natural gas that can produce, that the whole country can run on, right? So they can actually create.
So they're old oil refineries
that were converted over to natural. So that's new technology that's come in, and they're the only ones now that can, like, they can make plastic, they can make cell phones, they can do anything.
Cool.
So like you have all the energy there. So what used to happen is we'd pull all the energy out of the ground of like Russia, or you'd pull it out of the ground in like Saudi Arabia or like in Kuwait, wherever, and you'd pull it out of America, you pull it out of Canada, and then they'd ship that energy, which energy, you lose energy when you ship it, right? It costs energy to move energy. Yep. And then we produce everything in somewhere like China, and then we like bring it back and consume it instead of producing it and selling it to other places. So where the next big move is like, why wouldn't you just build on top of the energy?
Of course.
And just you resource the energy to create when all the consumption is already happening here. So the consumption's happening here, the energy is here. So let's pull the energy out, produce over there.
That's just from idiotic decision making from politicians from years ago that I think of really.
Yeah. And corporations saying, how do I fix my bottom line right now in this moment in time, not caring about what the next 20 years looks like. So you're going to see a big pull coming back. It's going to happen. And China's super fragile. Everything's super fragile there. They don't have food security. And also innovation doesn't happen when people are suppressed. Right. Innovation happens when people wake up and they know they'll be rewarded to create. Right. So that's the other part of it. But what else is pretty cool about America is if it costs 1/10 of the cost to move stuff on water as it does on land. Right. So if you look at the Mississippi Riverway, this is crazy. If you look at the maps, basically from the northern part of America all the way down to Texas and the whole east side of the country, you can move everything on the Mississippi River. So it's very easy to move stuff around. And then they also have all the interstates and all the railroads as well. But Texas, what's crazy about Texas is they have, I think it's 19 major ocean ports as well. So it's very easy to import and export stuff right out of Texas. But where it gets really, really cool is America's suffering with demographics. But then if you look at northern Mexico, the demographics are the exact opposite, where there's hardly any old people. So theirs looks like a pyramid. So it's all like the majority of the population are like 20 to 50, right? And then they have a bunch of babies too, and they have hardly any old people, but they're also more talented than Chinese people when their skill set is higher, and they love doing those labor jobs. They love working in manufacturing and in machinery, and they're right there on the border. So one, you have all the energy, right? Then you have a political outlook that's let's create, let's build.
Asia Bear.
Got a sneeze going on. You have a political outlook that's getting rid of all the red tape to create. So you have all the energy in the ground. Then you have a political structure that supports entrepreneurship and very conservative and kind of right leaning. And then you have the demographics right there that you can tap in that's cheaper labor than it would be for American people, because that's they're proud to have those type of jobs. And then you have all the riverways and you have the ocean ports to import and export and all the consumptions there. So it only makes sense for that to be the next spot that's going to be created. So if you can buy property in Texas, if you can get there and start buying manufacturing companies across the board. So whether it's glass, it's steel, if people stop for a minute, everybody right now is trying to look at the next, what's the next internet thing? What's the next app? What's the next technology? And you should be looking at AI, and we're using that in the app that we're building as well. Dawson that I told you about is it's fucking insane what this guy's creating right now, bro. It's insane. We're actually we might even participate with you, because we're going to be helping trainers and gyms and stuff we're utilizing. Because I think one of the most practical uses for AI is helping people create programs for their clients and actually monitor their information and make it very simple for you to create great programs for them and help them in real time. The information that you can pull information from all over the internet and get them the answers that they need. Right?
Sign me up.
Yeah. I think you'll be we'll come to you and actually show you and pilot it for you. What we're going to probably be ready in a couple months.
Cool.
But yeah, so that's so the whole idea of buying cash flowing business is something that's out there. There's some young entrepreneur right now that it's going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars just because he didn't know it was possible. Go check out Dan Pena, Roland Fraser. That'll help. And now you kind of know, as far as America and why I would say if you want it to be very safe and if food security, political security, but military security. And this one other thing I'll add to that. Everybody always talks about China trying to take over Taiwan. And they probably might at some point in time. And everybody's that's where all the microchips are made. 80% of the world's silica sand that microchips are made out of is in America. And they have all the patents. So they'll just pull it back, and that's not even something to worry about.
And that's why they say don't mess with Texas. I guess
Don't mess with Texas.
they're going to just keep on being able to say that.
Yeah, exactly. So everything used to be about, the reason the military is so strong in America is because they whoop ass at the Navy, right? Because that's what it's all about. Like, you got to think, like, if Russia wanted to attack America or China wanted to attack America, you got to put a bunch of people on a ship and a plane, and then you got to try to ship them across the ocean, make sure that they wanted, and then when they land on the land, then they got to try to fight all the Americans that have guns.
Right.
Right. And then you got to land on the ocean. You got to go hundreds of miles just to get to the people.
Yeah.
So the big race right now, the reason that people aren't talking about is the space race.
Yeah.
Because then you just drop a nuclear bomb from outer space, right? And that's why everybody's racing to get there right now. That's why everybody's have been pushing for it. So that's the next crazy thing.
Another conversation.
A whole nother conversation.
Okay, so I want to get uncomfortable. I want to go in the cold plunge. I know you do too.
Yeah.
So how can we sort of conclude this segment?
Yeah.
What would be a takeaway for the listenership and the viewership right now? What would be your message?
I think if you could learn anything from Ryan Hawks, it's that first off, you got to get really clear on what it is that you want to do. And I'm not just talking in business, like, who do you want to be as a man or as a woman? Like, what do you want to create? Is it a stay-at-home mom? Is it a teacher? Is it a firefighter? Is it a personal trainer? Is it a big personality? Is it public speaking? And that will evolve. So don't be scared to let that evolve. Like, so try to create the vision.
So get your Hilroy notepad.
Get your Hilroy notebook out. And write. Yeah. Don't type it in your phone unless you're like super productive. I'm a scribbler.
Get vision.
Get vision. Yeah. Get very clear on vision. And I encourage you to find something to struggle with. Like, to go through your problems, go through the struggle and embrace it and be happy that you have it, because that's where you're going to, everything I told you about AK, that's how I found this, like, everything that the energy you see in the spirit that I'm speaking with right now. You might disagree with some of the things I said, but one thing I don't think anybody would deny with is that guy's a passionate motherfucker, right? Like, he's a passionate motherfucker. He's wrong on 2 or 3 things, and I could clearly prove him wrong. That's okay. And I'll accept it if you prove me wrong on whatever. But one thing you're going to understand is, so you got to get the vision. You got to figure out, like, how to struggle through stuff and be okay with going through stuff. And then you keep working towards that, but don't be scared to pivot. And that voice that's telling you right now that you're not to go on camera, not to say it, not to get up and dance, and not to put yourself out there and not to go after it. Like, at the end of the day, you're all going to die anyways. I'm going to die. You're going to die. And no one's going to remember us. And you have a limited amount of time here. So I say, write the story as big as possible. Dream a bit. Like, who cares if you put the dream big and you fucking fail? At least you tried for it, right? So create the vision, dream big, go after it relentlessly. And when things go wrong, just smile and say to yourself, I have a tattooed on my wrist, Amora Fati, which is the love of fate. It's just love fate, because that's, like, it's supposed to happen that way to teach you a lesson. And continue to work forward. Don't be scared to pivot, move through things, try different things, because you never know where you're going to find what you're good at. You never know what the next big thing is going to be. And I think, as a man, search for purpose and meaning over happiness. And happiness, when it comes, enjoy it, but let it go when it goes, and just continue to chase that purpose and meaning.
I bet you could ask, let's say, an 80-year-old, an 85-year-old, if they found their purpose very, very late in life, and they finally hit that grand slam or that home run. I bet if you were to ask them if they would do it all over again, they would probably say no, because, like, everything that led up to that moment where they finally found what they wanted to do, it created that. It created that one. It created the foundation for them to be ready to accept it. Whereas on the flip side, if you were to find a different 85-year-old or something like that, and then you'd ask, what's your biggest regret? They'd be like, not taking that big risk or whatever, because they don't know. Listen, you can either struggle in your younger years and create your struggle now, or you're going to struggle when you're older. Like, I'd sooner go. That's what entrepreneurship's not for everybody. It's not, but I think everybody should try it. And then you'll figure out really, really quickly if it's for you or not. Because, like, most millionaires are actually, like, they work for someone else. Because most people, like, are entrepreneurs for 20 years and don't make shit. They might have a couple $100,000 or something, but they don't make much money. And then eventually, like, they stay at it. And then all of a sudden they have their big break. And then some people make all the money at a young age, but they've never struggled. So they have no character. They have no willpower. They get all the money, and they just all of a sudden they got drug habits and alcohol habits, and they break up with their wife, and they can't handle the attention from women, and, like, they have no discipline, no principles, no character, and, like, they've been blessed with all this shit and they don't know how to handle it. So, like, if you go through the struggle at a young age and you get all the character, the discipline, you've been through some shit, and then God, the universe, whatever, blesses you, your hard work blesses you,
it's like you're ready for that blessing and you're ready to take it on, and it just makes you more of who you are.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. So I know you closed it off one time, but how do you want to close it off this time?
I honestly, I just want people to, like find belief in themselves. And especially men. I'm going to speak to men because that's really what my mission is right now. And I base this off, I love my mom so much. And I just think women and children deserve men to be more of and more capable of. And I feel like men are desperate for leadership right now. And I guess I'm going to lead this off by saying that you owe it to the world to be a leader. And we're desperate for leadership right now. And I think there's 3 levels of leadership, and I'll share that as in the closing. And I think that's a beautiful closing. So the first step of leadership is learning to be a leader in your own life. Like you can look up to yourself, right? Like you do the things you said you were going to do. So like you hold yourself accountable in all the different facets and categories of life.
Yeah.
And you're a respectable person with great character, and you're proud of who you're becoming. And now you've earned the right to go to level 2, which is now you can lead your wife, your children, and your community. People look to you as somebody that's respectable, someone they can trust and that they look up to and they're inspired by. And then the third level is you've become such a great leader that other bad motherfuckers want to follow you.
We'll leave it at that. That was pretty heavy. All right, let's go get uncomfortable. And
let's do it. Sauna.
Get in a cold plunge in sauna. Yeah. All right, cool.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Gut Gang, we are out. See you in the next episode. Okay, that wraps up this episode of the Gut Gang podcast. Thanks so much for being part of the Gut Gang community. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and even leave a comment. Your feedback fuels our growth. And also, here's something special. If you want more exclusive content, be sure to become part of the private Gut Gang members-only community, where you get to see behind-the-scenes bonus segments in my cold plunge and the sauna with each of the podcast guests. That's right. Part of the podcast series is having the guests hang out with me for the whole day at my place, biohacking, taking cold plunges, going in the sauna, even a coffee tasting where we hook up all the mics and the cameras and we shoot the entire experience. You definitely don't want to miss out on this action. So I'll see you over there. Gut Whisperer out.